Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate all of you tuning us on in as we're one day away from the weekend. A busy show tonight. Joe Murgia is here to talk some UFOs, and he is looking fantastic tonight with the black shirt combination, looking like he's ready to rumble. Nicole Sakic is going to join us as well, and drawing a new cartoon tonight, we got Dirty Filth. Hi to everyone, including race fan in the gold medal position, SJ with a silver, and B taking home the bronze medal tonight. Michael Morris, Robert Lamoth, Laura Lobbs, and Bar Madison, nice to see you all. Karen in the Woo Train and Forrest Louie, how you doing? JSCO and Skip to Malou, thanks for coming on in. Philip Blacka is here. Philip will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Vashti Impaler and Susie B is here. Susie B will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. She does not like eye contact, so don't make eye contact. She won't sign. Cosmic Joe, evening to you. Jenny White Bear, we love you, my dear. Hope you're doing well. Hello, Pix. And who else is here? Scrolling on down, Sandra Kincaid. I got my new CPAP set up, and yeah, they did mess up my order, Sandra. But that's okay. I got it set up. Cypher, how you doing? Luscious Jules, thanks for coming on in as we continue on with roll call tonight. Good morning, Castle Dude. How you doing? Brown Dwarf, good to see you. Hello, Bobbert. Dirty Filth in the chat room. And Jeeves, nice to see you back. Scrolling on down with our roll call, T-Bone, my man, thanks for coming on in. And who else is here? Noble Patrick, good to see you. As we continue on with our roll call here. And who else is next? Gizmo, nice to see you. Thank you for coming in. Mark Sanchez and his collection of Hawaiian shirts, that is. Thomas Rock, good to see you. W. David Page, Little Cam on Twitch. Thank you all for joining us. Operation Shutdown, good to see you. And Paula Foss, thank you for joining us. Eternity Eternal, good to have you here. Rock and Rory, purple-haired Pixie Lara, thank you for joining us. And who else is here tonight? We have JBD, Nina Williams, Michael Fontaine. Good to have you all here. Algoray on Twitch, thank you for joining us. Corey, thank you for coming on in. Magneticus Attractus, and W. Decker kicking off this super chat tonight. Thank you to Mr. Decker for that great super chat. We very much appreciate your love and support of SOR, my man. Thank you very much. Abbott, how you doing? And Mike Rivers, thank you for joining us. Major Lee, Susan Alloway, good to see you both as we continue on with our roll call. Warden Dragon, Pam Harris, thank you for coming on in. We are caught up right now. Let's get the radio side started, shall we? Hello and welcome to the radio side and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We're going to get into the UFO discussion. Joining us tonight, we have Joe Murgia and Nicole Sakic, as we're going to get deep into the UFO territory of what is happening, because there are big days coming ahead, and we have all of you here as well. Dizzy F. and Reed, how you doing? And over in Spreaker, we have Bill WD40. You know what that means? He is officially lubing us up for tonight's show, because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. No rigidness with beautiful Bill WD-40 around. None at all. He doesn't put up with that. Rain, thank you for coming on in. And Les Paul Holland, strum away, Les. Strum away. Amy, Vegas. Oh, we miss you, beautiful. Hope you're doing very, very well. And reminder to all of you, the super chat is open. And our store is open on our website, where we have new Science Blob swag. Science Blob swag. Yes, Blob has her own material. Scanman, how are you? Good to see you. And we are caught up for right now. So make sure you shop at our store, and make sure you hang on out. If you're new here, hit subscribe and ring that bell, because it really helps with us. And after the show, leave a comment. Nicole has great hair tonight. Throw your horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. You'll pay me the favor to hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We have a great show of information tonight. We are going deep into the UFO world. Joe Murgia is here, and Nicole Sackich to take us down this lonely, lonely road I've ever known. Quoting White Snake there. Oh, yeah. And then in hour number 3, we have Steve Stockton from Among the Missing. Robin Haynes is back with the Cryptid Report. I've got the Dave 101, and I'm going to talk about barring journalists from certain press conferences. And then from there, it's the weird news of the week. Let's get right to it, shall we? All right. Good friend of this show, Joe Murgia, has been doing this for a few years now. He got his interest in 1996 in UFOs after reading the one book I have never finished, Communion by Whitley Strieber. It scared the hell out of me. It sent him down a paranormal rabbit hole in which he now resides. Murgia runs his blog at ufojoe.net, where he focuses on the latest information about UFOs and other government programs that are going on. After studying UFOs for 23 years, he still doesn't know what it all means. I don't think any of us really know what it all means anymore, but nonetheless, we're going to have that discussion tonight. Joe, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio. It's been a while. Haven't seen you since our Vegas fan party, and it was so good to finally meet you there last year, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing well, and yeah, it's been a while. When was that? When was the Spaced Out Radio get together?
Last May.
Okay, so what? A little less than a year. We're coming up, a couple of months, and yeah, it's great to be back. And thanks for inviting me.
Anytime. You know you always have a home here. And Nicole Sackich is here because we wanted to make this a group discussion on this UFO topic, because there is so much going on right now. Nicole, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Dave. Hi, Space Travelers. Hi, Joe.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
You too.
Well, let's get right into it. Joe, you've been studying UFOs for 20-some years now, and it seems to be getting more and more complicated each and every day that goes by here. We keep thinking we're closer to some sort of confirmation or disclosure, But for you, being on someone who covers this on a daily basis, you've got a very big passion for this subject. Why is that?
Why is that is a good question. I have no idea because nobody in my family has anything close to an interest in this. So where did it come from? I read, I had some interest when I was younger, saw Close Encounters in the theater, saw Bigfoot Legend of Bogey Creek in the theater, Bigfoot docudrama. And then later on in the mid 90s, as you said, I read Communion. I was scared too when I read that book and I stopped reading it. And the night I stopped reading it, I woke up on my couch, frozen, paralyzed, not being able to move, hearing a high pitched noise in my ear and thinking the aliens were coming to abduct me because I just stopped reading the book. So I was like, what the hell? Struggled out of that. And the next morning, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take that as a sign. I need to finish reading Communion. And I did. And then I loved it. And then I read Breakthrough and Transformation as two books after that. So then I just kept devouring stuff and reading. And why I had such an interest. I mean, to me, it's like at the time I would say, how could you not be interested in this? How could you not be interested in this? If you look at it, obviously there's something there. Unless your name is Sean Kirkpatrick, you realize there's something anomalous going on. So basically, once I realized that, I'm like, I can't get enough of this. I mean, I read a lot of stuff back then, which now I would say I should have never wasted my time, but it was a really good way for me to develop discernment. And over the years, realized that not everything I read is true. And back then I was really naive and that's what I thought. I'm like, oh, this is true. This is true. And then I'm like, wait a second, these books contradict each other. And most of it was channeled material that I'm speaking of. So yeah, so that's really what I got interested in. I just stuck with it and lost a little interest until 2017. And then everything started up again. And that's where we are now. And we're still, I don't know how close we are to full disclosure. I don't know how close we are to the masses admitting that something is here. I know polls show that the majority of Americans believe, UFOs are real and the government knows more than it's saying, but do they really, really believe that? I don't know. But I think we need to get to that point. And people say, well, why do you need the government to tell you? I'm like, I don't need the government, but they do. My family and friends, they do. Otherwise, they don't care. They don't care. They don't know who David Grush is. They don't watch News Nation. So that's where we are right now. And we can get into the Kirkpatrick stuff, which has been really a downer the last few months, I think.
Oh, we're going to get into that here momentarily. And, the subject of UFOs / UAP has been a hotbed for this community. It has brought people together. It has divided many people. Joe, I mean, the arguments that go on Twitter, I'm sure my audience, especially on the radio, is tired of hearing about them. I know I am. I've actually disassociated myself with a lot of that Twitter stuff that's going on. How have you been able to keep doing with what you're doing with, all of the gaslighting and criticism that goes on?
Right now, I'm ignoring it for the most part because I realize that I waste so much time and have wasted so much time interacting with some of those people. If somebody is new to this and they want to know and they're a little skeptical, that's one thing. But these folks have been at it for years and they're making the same arguments. And I understand that we do not have the smoking gun evidence we all want. We don't have that. The gimbal, Tic Tac, and Go Fast videos and the other videos Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp have put out, those aren't even close to enough to get the attention of the masses for a prolonged period of time. For a while it was, and then you see ups and downs, especially on Twitter, but then it dies down and we're all like, so where's the craft making a 90-degree turn? So I understand when they make that point that we don't have that, but we look at the history of the topic and, I don't know, tens of thousands of sightings. People had up close sightings. You speak with experiencers. You hear David Grush, you hear Eric Davis, you hear Carl Nell, and we all come to the conclusion, if you're not an experiencer, which I really am not, like you guys, you come to the conclusion that there's something here and it's not black technology. It's not the government trying to fool us for 75 plus years. So I used to engage with the folks who are just nonstop, negative. I've tried my best to cut down on it because it's a waste of time. They're not going to change their mind unless, like I said, we get to see that infamous alleged 23-minute video that Lou Elizondo has spoken about, and other evidence, firsthand whistleblowers who allegedly worked in the crash retrieval program. We don't have that. So we're kind of stuck right now. And that's why Sean Kirkpatrick is able to make as much progress and do as much damage as he's been the past few months. So will we get that smoking gun evidence? Will we get the firsthand whistleblowers? I don't know. I would like to think so. I would like it to hope that it would happen before I die, Dave, and not think about Nicole saying this is about our kids. And like when she first said that, I'm like, please stop saying that. But now I'm like, you know what? She might be right. But I don't know. Either way, I'm in it for the long haul. I have patience, and we'll see what comes tomorrow, the next week, the next month, the next year.
Well, there's a lot going on politically with this story right now. And I'm a firm believer that the minute this story went highly political, we knew we were going to lose some sort of battle here in the war of words and the war for truth regarding this. And I use the word war extremely lightly there. But has politics and the influence of government intervention really overshadowed the real story here?
What do you mean the real story? Just
The
define
real
the real
story about what is going on, because story has become very political. It's become a hotbed controversy within the scientific community. The military isn't talking. We're getting a lot of politics being played with this.
I mean, at least it's, for the most part, it's bipartisan. You have extreme right, Representative Luna. You have extreme left, not at the same level, but AOC showing an interest in this, not at the same level as Congresswoman Luna has. So that's been really, really great. Unfortunately, I also get notifications from all of those members of Congress who are interested, and I get to see their political tweets, and it's just horrific. It's just both sides going back and forth. So I think the only political angle is if you're a politician, and Dave, no matter whether or not this is good, whatever the phenomenon represents, if it's good, neutral, or negative, if you're just say you're the president, do you want to disclose this on your watch when you don't know exactly what we're dealing with and you don't know how people are going to react? I understand that the answer being no. Kick the can down the road and let somebody else deal with it, not during my administration. I think that's the political angle. And I think you'll see when you see somebody like Rubio talk about it, he's so careful. They don't want to just even go over the line when he's asked about firsthand whistleblowers and if he finds them credible. When Joe Khalil from News Nation asked him, he said, well, I don't find them credible. I don't find them not credible. It's like, yes, you do. Just say it. If you find them credible, say it. The problem is, if he says that, then people are like, wait a second. Marco Rubio, who is, I think he's second in line for the Senate Select Intelligence Committee. He's the co-chair below Mark Warner, the Democrat. So if he says, yes, these people are credible, somebody's going to say, well, what are those people saying? Well, they're saying we have craft and bodies of non-humans. That's a huge story. That's gigantic. But he won't say it. And I think it's because he realizes they don't know how the reaction will be. We know how we'll react. We'll love it. But we really don't know how the masses will react. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but I think that's playing a large role in where they just don't want to admit that this is real. Not yet.
Well, let's get into a lot of the bigger news that is happening right now. And this is going to be what my Dave 101 is on a little bit later in the show. And Nicole, we'll bring you in here with Joe in this conversation, but we're going to start with Joe here. We know that media outlets are being denied access to this new UFO study that's going to come out with ARROW, where they're allegedly going to introduce the new head of the ARROW program after Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick stepped down right before Christmas last year. Joe, I mean, when you've worked in enough media to know in your life that when you control the media, you control the message. This is a dangerous thing, even though the topic is UFOs. If this was a topic about immigration, healthcare, or anything else, the mainstream media would be all over this if they were cutting covering this story. Yet with UFOs, it seems to be allowed. Your opinion?
Yeah, and as I said on Twitter, it's News Nation is really making the biggest. They're the biggest network, cable network that has been shut out, and they spoke up and spoke about it and interviewed Ross Coulthart, but they're not. People don't know who they are, so it's not making a big. It's not making a splash in the news from other news outlets who should be speaking up for them. If this had happened to CBS News, 60 Minutes, NBC, you would see, I would think they would put up a big stink about it. But so nobody knows about it. So apparently, whatever select media members, they were briefed on what's coming out in this historical report that's going back to 1945 that Kirkpatrick worked on with his colleagues at Arrow. And eventually we're going to see it, but the networks who were handpicked, they're going to get first shot at reporting on it. And I'm sure it's going to be negative. And I'm sure that's the first impression Americans are going to, and the world are going to get. And that's basically what's going to stick. Any follow-up that's done after that, people aren't, you know how it is when you make a mistake, people see the mistake and then you retract it in the media. People usually don't see the retraction. So I think that's kind of what we're dealing with here. We'll see other people report on it. We'll see Ross Coulthart. Somebody said, well, Lou Elizondo should go on News Nation and be interviewed by Ross. I'm like, you know how many people in my family, friends and family, watched the News Nation Ross interview with David Grush? Zero. I mean, we all watched it. We loved it. Ross did a great job. But News Nation right now, as great a job as they're doing, we need more than that. We have Elizondo calling out Kirkpatrick on Twitter, saying basically that he's a liar, but nobody sees that except outside of our community, which is still rather small. And now I've got your question if I even answered it, but that's
no. I think you're doing well, but I think it's a dangerous precedent that is being set. And Nicole, I want to get your opinion on the fact that media outlets are being stymied by this, because here's the thing: we don't know how many media outlets have been chosen. We don't know which media members have been chosen, and we don't even know if those people know a UFO from a catfish. We really don't.
You're right. Was there a question in that?
Well, that's why I
I
asked for your
tend to agree with.
opinion on that.
I do think it's dangerous for our narrative because it can be singular in a point of view. I mean, are they going to dip into the reporters that usually write for the New York Times or for the Post, or are it's just the big question mark right now, because they do go back and forth. They might put out something that's favorable. They might put out, like Joe said, these retractions, and the retractions aren't necessarily followed. So this concerns, I think, everybody in the community, because we don't have a say in it. If they had included people like Ross, or I mean, have they even said Laszlo will be included at this point? Or I know everybody hates on the Greens, but John Greenwald seemed to have a favorable relationship with Susan Goff. Is he going to be included on this? He's been
He's
included.
not. No, none of those people you mentioned have been
Right.
included. I think Greenwald said it was either Greenwald or Greenstreet got a response from Susan Goff, who said, I don't know what you're talking about. What meeting? So, yeah, I'm assuming it's going to be ABC again. ABC has been allowed to interview Kirkpatrick in the past.
Right.
So, yeah, Dave, you guys bring up a great point. We have no idea who was allowed into this briefing. And we also don't know, because George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell have said they heard good things about Tim Phillips, who is the acting director of Arrow. Was he in this briefing? Because if he was, and he's telling everybody nothing to see here, this historical report is accurate, then he's not as good as we were led to believe. Or maybe he has flipped like Kirkpatrick has, although we don't know for sure. But Kirkpatrick's name was on a paper with Avi Loeb talking about motherships, so it's like we had hope back then. And when Lou Elizondo first talked about him in 2021, he's like, oh, well, I believe everybody deserves a chance. You could tell there was some intrepid, he was hesitant to say anything positive because he had his own opinions from his experiences and knowing about Kirkpatrick. turned out it didn't work out so well. So yeah, a lot we do not know.
When I talked to one insider about what they thought of Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick when he got hired for that position, there was more expletives than there was words in there. Put it that way. You
Yeah,
know, I mean, it was an ugly sentence. Put it that way. A
the
very
one thing I
long
heard was the one thing I
sentence.
heard was he is a narcissist. That's the one word I heard. And then when I met Grush before he went public, I asked him about him. He goes, Sean's got to have a chance to really do the right thing. We'll see what happens. Basically, that's all he said on Kirkpatrick.
With this private meeting that is going on, what are the rumblings you guys are hearing in regards to what is supposed to be coming out? Nicole, let's start with you.
Oh, we could start with me, but I'm just going to say my biggest rumblings have come from Joe. And that's in the sense that Arrow, and I love saying this behind the scenes because I've been saying it for a couple years or since Arrow was formed, like it's Condon 2.0. So whatever they do discover or whatever they don't follow through and look into, that's Condon report all over it. It took 2 years for the Condon report to come out. And for 2 years, Edward Condon was doing exactly what Sean Kirkpatrick is doing now, except he wasn't supposed to be like spouting off his mouth yet. Kirkpatrick seems to have a platform and he's using it. So why is he saying anything now in such a public way when he wasn't like this when he was head of Arrow?
And I don't know if Kirkpatrick, and I know Lou mentioned the lie word speaking about Kirkpatrick on Twitter. I don't have the exact quote, but I don't know if Kirkpatrick didn't find the programs that we were told existed. If he didn't, if he didn't have the proper, he says he had all the accesses he needed, but I spoke to somebody who's pretty knowledgeable about accesses, and they're like, even if he had, top secret SCI and he was read into this and that, it doesn't mean he was read into the crash retrieval program. The agencies that run that and the people in charge of the SAPs, they decide who gets to have need to know. If you look back on the Admiral Wilson documents, it talks about, there's no politicians, there's no president listed on there. And the rules for being read into that program, he wouldn't even tell Eric Davis if you read the notes. He goes, but I don't think even they would tell him. The program manager who he spoke with, allegedly, Admiral Wilson did at the crash retrieval program he went to visit, wouldn't even tell him, you need this, this, and this to be, put on the bigot list and be given the tour. So they don't even know. So I don't know if Kirkpatrick did not find anything, and now he's just saying, there's nothing here, guys. Or he knows it's there, purposely did not look, so he has plausible deniability, and he's just towing, he's just doing the bidding of the gatekeepers. So either he knows or he doesn't know. I don't know. I'm confused. I've heard different things behind the scenes. When you hear Lou saying he's lying, it makes you think he's just, Kirkpatrick is doing the bidding of the gatekeepers. And then you ask yourself, why? Then we start to speculate, is it something negative? They don't want the story to get out because it's horrific. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm still baffled exactly why Kirkpatrick is on this warpath saying these people are just totally not credible. The ones like Grush and all the other folks we know the names, talking about crash retrievals over the years. They're religious, they're believers like religious folks are. There's no evidence. It's all hearsay. And our response is, we don't have one because we don't have firsthand whistleblowers. We could say, you're right, it is hearsay, and we don't have the but. We don't have, check out this firsthand whistleblower. We don't have that. So we're stuck, Dave, and there's really not much we can do about it. And it's, we'll keep doing what we've always done, but there are people who are like, I'm done. I'm tired of this. They're new to this. They're not used to this. They expected this to just keep going the way it was going after Grush had the congressional hearing with Fravor and Graves, but we're stuck right now. So we just
hold on right there. Hold on right there, because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Spaced Out Radio with Joe Murgia, Nicole Sackage. UFO discussion continues right after this. Stay tuned, everybody. Joe, thank you for putting this out on your Twitter. Right now we have 346 people watching on, or 348 on X, 169 on YouTube, Facebook, a big 3, and on Twitch, 1. Twitch, you got to pick it up. Get us at least 2 here, okay? But thank you for that. And for people who may not have tuned into us prior or ever before, we are a hybrid between a live radio show, a podcast, and a YouTube channel. And of course, you're watching on X. We have to time everything out for our radio stations, so we actually take commercial breaks every half an hour. You guys, though, get to see and hear what goes on behind the scenes, including the master artist himself, Dirty Filth, there at filthy.com. That's with 2 Y's, no I. And yeah, Joe, thank you. That's a hot start, man. Very hot start.
Woo!
But I'm really, there's really not much we could say right now, except, they're like, you're repeating yourself. You've already said that. We need firsthand whistleblowers. I'm like, I know, but we don't have them. So we have to just take it right now. Really not much more we can do.
I'll chime in with my usual devil's advocate argument with this, because you know what it is. That's when I say, like all roads lead to Rome. Where do all ufology roads lead to? And that's bad if it leads to one person.
But I don't think it does lead to one person. If David Grush is saying, and it's hearsay, and it's not even, we don't have it, but he says we've interviewed over 40 people, and some of them worked on the craft, firsthand witnesses. We sent them to the IG. Those are not the same people. As far as I know, those are not the same people.
Right.
But we don't know who they are. We don't know who they are. And that's one thing with Brian Bender, who I got into an argument with. I met him at Seoul, and I'm like, Brian, I realized, he's like, this is hearsay. We don't have firsthand witnesses. I'm like, I know that. That doesn't mean I'm going to stop talking about it. There's nothing I could do about that. And he got mad at me recently, blocked me, and then he deleted his account. He's gone for now. But it's like, I understand that. I'm not an idiot. We all know it's hearsay. We all know David Grush, whatever his firsthand witness, his firsthand evidence is either going to be photographs or videos, maybe photographs. Some people don't consider that firsthand evidence. If it's a CIA photograph, is that enough? No, but it's something. And of course, people will say, well, they can interject, bogus stuff in there. And so it's, like I said, we're at an impasse, and I don't know if it leads to where it leads. I don't know where it leads,
Me either, man. Me
Space
either.
Toys. Space toys.
And then and then we get into the whole, the stuff I really like talking about. What are we dealing with? Is it extraterrestrial? And you hear Gary Nolan saying, no, I don't think it is. And then you hear a story like, I just discount your story with Samantha when you saw something that certainly looks like an extraterrestrial would look. And there are other stories like that, Dave. So, but then you have the John Keel side, which Jim Semivan and Tom DeLong are talking about, and Gary Nolan, who recommended that book for me. It's like this intelligence is not physical, but it can take on physical form. It can take on any form it wants. Then you wonder, is everything I'm seeing that we think looks extraterrestrial really not? It's just interdimensional, intended to fool us. And I know you disagree with that. And I don't know if that's true either. I don't know. I think I go back and forth. I just want to know if it's all extraterrestrial, just looking interdimensional because of the technology. I'm fine with that. I don't have a favorite thing that I want to happen. I mean, obviously we all want it to be positive and something that can help us lift up humanity. I just don't think that's the case. But in the end, I don't know.
Well, we're going to find out here, maybe.
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
2034. 2034.
2034, 2075.
I'm betting on 2035.
And I want to see Carl Nell. Carl Nell is really sharp, and he should be on News Nation at the very least talking about this. Another voice. For whatever reason, he's not. In 60 Minutes, I think, would cover this if at least one or two whistleblowers who were firsthand worked in the program, if they came forward. If they don't, I don't see 60 Minutes going there. It's just too controversial to have, witnesses who are saying, well, so-and-so told me, even though Grush is powerful, I think. it's still. And then we have Lou's documentary that's coming out. He's connected to that. Supposedly that's supposed to be really, really good, but we'll see it when it comes out, because I've lost hope in a documentary making such a big difference. But I could be wrong. Maybe this one has people in there.
Joe. Hold on, Joe, because we're going to come back. Thank you to Candy, Pix, Jeremy, T-Bone, and W. Decker for the super chats. Our store is open on our website, where we do not have ugly swag, people. You'll like it on there, so go look. And here we go with the next half hour. Here we go with the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Reminder to all of you that all of our archives are always free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go again with Joe Murgia, Nicole Sakic. We are hanging on out, talking about the UFO discussion right now. We're going to start with some Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick here, because he literally labeled anybody in his latest article in Scientific America basically saying that if you believe in UFOs, aliens, and all that kind of stuff, you're a conspiracy theorist that is doing nothing to move the ball forward. Joe, what's your thoughts on that? I'm sure you read that article.
Yeah, it's damaging, and it's a flashback to the old days. We read, like Nicole said, with Condon, and what was the other report that came out? The CIA report, not Condon, but there's another one, and I'm drawing a blank. You know, when it basically they didn't want to tie up the lines. What was it?
The Robertson panel.
Robertson panel. It's like we're flashing back to the late 60s, early 70s. We're taking a step backwards. But as much as I think that is damaging, and I don't, Kirkpatrick is just going over the line, just basically trying to insult anybody who's interested in the phenomenon. It's going to be temporary. I just don't know when we're going to get, let's see what comes of Lou's documentary. Lou Elizondo is connected to a documentary that is supposed to be really good. I believe when David Fravor brought it up with Ryan Graves, I think it was last year, he said there's something coming out that's a game changer that has the right amount of people in it, and let's just hope so. We'll see with that. We have James Fox's documentary, but that's not coming till late 2024, maybe 2025. Anything else coming? I don't know. You hear whispers. I do hear whispers, but I don't know what it is. Something positive. But once again, I'm not going to get my hopes up, because in the past, I've got my hopes up. The thing happened, and I'm like, you know what? This is not going to move the needle with the masses. And for me, and people keep saying, who cares about the masses? We need the masses. If we're going to force our representatives to do our bidding on this subject, we need to be more than, I don't know how large our community is, but we need to be a lot larger to make a difference. And I know they do listen to us on Twitter. We make a difference. But if it's a lot, times 10 of what we have right now in the UFO community, we can make more of a difference, and we can get more. We can maybe not have the UAP Disclosure Act gutted if we had 10 times the amount of people calling our representatives. Maybe that wouldn't have happened. Maybe it still would have happened. But yeah, we still need to grow. And that's why it's important for the government to release whatever data they have as much as they can. I don't care about the government's opinion, unless I do care about people who have seen government data. I want to say, you've seen 75 years of data. You've had access to all of this data. What, in your opinion, are we dealing with? I do want to hear those opinions. But as far as, just the government, is how important it is for the government to say this, it's real. For me, it's not. But again, for others, it's extremely important. Otherwise, they'll just go about their days, work their jobs, and nothing will change. I just don't see it changing unless we get that smoking gun evidence.
Nicole, I want to bring you in here. Do you think Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick is a psyop in of himself, considering that here he is writing articles about large motherships with Avi Loeb, but in the meantime, he's saying there are no aliens, there are no UFOs around. People got to get their heads out of their butts and just shut up about this subject publicly. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but I mean, just your thoughts on the overall journey here.
I think he was handed an impossible task, honestly. Like, just how Arrow was formed and its inception and how it came together. It seemed like it lacked funding, it lacked staff. Did they ever start making like regular tweets or any type of social media reach out? A lot of things fell short with them. And I know early on we heard, I think, did he go to Gillibrand and was like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, and this was facing the staffing issues. And she was like, make it your own, like champion this. And I've been tossed plenty of jobs where I haven't had any sort of training. It's just like clean up this mess. So I think that's a tell right there. Let's hand somebody an impossible task. We've seen versions of Arrow before, whether we want to say it's, some sort of Bigelow group or OSAP or ATIP, going all the way back to the Advanced Theoretical Physics Working Group. So where have these groups fallen short in the past? People who they can bring in to collaborate with them, and funding. We already know Arrow's faced that. And now we're coming up with what seems to be a singular narrative. Whether we champion Grush or not, like he's the narrative. And what concerns me most is if they're investigating what he's discovered and that narrative continues to get more and more singular. And this is where I say all roads lead to Rome. But if all roads do lead back through kind of the groups I just traced and our known players, and we get to those top 3 or 4, and this scenario that we've been following with them, if we can pull those cards and if they're found to be wrong, then this whole house falls down. So I know we don't like to think of it that way, but if Kirkpatrick came across some sort of lie and these people think that they're working on one thing and they were told they're working on something, and so they're coming out with that now, and they've gotten to the truth of that somehow because they have had access to different departments, then we're going to get a big carpet pulled out from underneath us. And that's going to be a tough pill to swallow. I'm not saying it's the truth, but that is a possibility.
The argument I bring up, I'm like, let's just say the people who worked in these programs were totally inept and totally clueless and were easily fooled into thinking they were working on alien technology when it was not. I don't think that's the case, but let's just say that's the case.
Right.
The argument against that is David Grush, if you believe him, and I do, he said, I brought in people to senior staffers in Congress, and I said, show them the information on the physiology of the beings. And it put them into G-lock, basically rock their world, change their worldview. If there's evidence that we're dealing with beings, this argument that it's black technology and everything's going to fall apart, that falls apart. But once again, we don't have that evidence. We don't have the people who briefed the senior staffers. So we need to hear from them. We need to hear, how did you come to that conclusion that these are non-human beings? Is it obvious? What do they look like? I think Grush knows. He's not saying. I think he can, but he's not saying. He wants to leave that. He said the president should be able to put out this information, not me. Maybe that's going to change if this op-ed ever comes out. And then, do these people really work on craft that they were fooled into thinking? Either they were told this is non-human and they believed it. I mean, we need to hear from the people and we need to ask them, you worked on non-human technology. In your mind, that's what you were working on. Why did you come to the conclusion that this is non-human technology? So we need to see those reports. We need to hear from them. Until then, there's not much else we can say. We could say maybe they were fooled. Maybe. I don't think that's the case.
Well, I mean, the other thing I like to bring up are these parallels with our disclosure pushes and our very real space programs and space endeavors, or our more elaborate war toys. So, like with Jimmy Carter, we had a push for disclosure and we ended up getting stealth. You know, we kind of exposed the stealth program. With Reagan, there was also another push. And what kind of got exposed was with Reagan was the shuttle program. But we also know we had a lot of drone programs at that time as well that were being protected. And in the Clinton era, we love that era. We also had this big space push for the International Space Station. So we have these parallels with things that are wrapped up in these same vein of SAPs and black programs and industry developers, like we like to call out, like Lockheed and Northrop Grumman and the players. So I'm just saying there are parallels to our disclosure and the space program, and those parallels continue today. Like what is our push right now that's paralleling disclosure? And that's, space-based endeavors, a space economy, space tourism, the fact that we're not the only country that's in space right now. We have more people on the moon, it's that sort of thing. And I don't disregard that at all. I follow that line. So, what are we going to get now? They just launched Space Force without any toys. Like, where are the Space Force toys? Are they just making them up right now? Or have they been on the books and being worked up for the last 30 years?
Yeah.
Well, that secret is something that, nobody seems to really get into. No idea why they're not getting into what is Space Force plans when it comes to UFOs and NHI and UAP. We don't know. It's never been discussed.
Well,
NASA's plan. Where's the rest of NASA's report? Like, that's my other side to this Condon 2.0 scenario. It's been Aero and NASA. It'll be like a right and then a left, and then maybe a gut punch. And there you have the same scenario as the Condon report shutting down Project Blue Book and disclosure and all this stuff. So.
Yeah, I think last year or the year before, I was told that the Space Force was developing better sensors to detect UAP. So there was that, and that came out. I think it came out a little later. That was accurate. I forget who put out that story. And then it was another, as far as technology, there's a plane that just released. I don't know if it was Lockheed or somebody else. It was today. It was put out some super duper advanced plane, which is nothing like people have reported. None of the 5 observables. It's just really fast. Mach 6 maybe.
Right.
So, and I do think black technology is part of this story. I know Jeremy Corbell says derivative technology. Will Miller, who was in the Wilson Davis notes, he talks about, he believes we have a craft that can go any place, anytime in the universe. We have other people like Eric Davis saying, no, we've had no success at back engineering it. Once again, I don't know who to believe. If we really have cracked gravity or come close to cracking gravity, I would think that would be even more secretive than if we're dealing with a non-human intelligence, because the technology, they don't want anybody to know about it. They don't want anybody to get their hands on it. And maybe, I've interviewed Michael Vai, who was a former defense and intel contractor. His theory is they're not going to use that. If we really do have that, and he had a sighting in the Persian Gulf in '93, I believe. He called it a majestic black triangle, silent, made a little bit of noise, maybe humming, I think. He's like, I think that was ours. And I think we have technology that is so far beyond what we have now, but they'll never use it unless they absolutely have to, because they're afraid it's going to upset the economy. It'll upset so many things around the world if you're changing the energy system.
That's when I argue that this is buried in our national laboratories in the Department of Energy. And everybody likes to talk about Los Alamos and whatever, but they need to look at like Lawrence Livermore Labs, or where did Kirkpatrick just get shuffled off to? Oak Ridge.
Yeah.
Like, what are those laboratories? What are they focused on? Like energy. So if we're talking about an alternative energy source and how it could disrupt our planet's economy, then that's where it's at. It's not
But,
hiding in Lockheed
but
Martin's basement.
well,
Parts
yeah,
of
it's like,
it,
Well, let
but
me ask you guys this: what do you think Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick's loathing of David Grush and other whistleblowers comes from? Where is that anger, that tension from?
I think there's
Joe?
definitely a history between those two, and I don't know the details of that history. David Grush has referenced a few of the times he has spoken with Dr. Kirkpatrick, and apparently there was a conference that they were both a part of. I don't know what kind of disagreement they had, or if they don't like each other, but there's definitely some bad blood there. And Kirkpatrick isn't just saying, if Kirkpatrick would come out and say, listen, the data that I've seen, I just don't see anything that proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that we're dealing with non-human intelligence. Is it possible there are other programs out there that I just overlooked and just could not find? It's possible. Yes, it's possible. He goes, but that's not what he's saying. As you pointed out, he's insulting everybody. You're a conspiracy theorist. You have no critical thinking skills. You're treating this like a religion. Where that's coming from, I don't know. I don't know if he's being told to say that, or it's just him saying, you know what? Screw all these people. I'm going to just take everybody down. They have no firsthand witnesses. Nobody came to me because apparently nobody trusts him. But supposedly some people did come to them. But most of the firsthand witnesses did not come to him. Grush did not go to him. So maybe he's taking that personally, and he's going to do as much damage as he can because it's all about Sean. Once again, I'm speculating, but I heard early on, he's a narcissist. And then they hear behind the scenes, we don't know what Sean is doing. We don't know why he's doing this. We know he met with this person, and this person. So he knows, apparently he's been told locations of programs. Did he actually go visit them? Not one member of the media, and it wasn't a lot of members who actually had access to him, but not one member said, Dr. Kirkpatrick, were you told locations, specific locations of where these UAP crash retrieval alleged programs are located? And if you were, did you go visit them and look for yourself? Nobody asked him that. I'm afraid it's possible he may say, you know what, in the historical report, I did look and there's nothing there, because it's possible they've moved stuff by now, which hopefully is not the case. But if they
that's
did,
what
they'll
we
have
said
to.
all along with this sort of attention. But then when you hear, that some of these sites or crashes are so big they've had to build structures around them, then that can't be so easily moved. Like, what's that all
Why
about?
doesn't he just tell us where it is, Nicole? Why doesn't Ross just tell us where it is? That's what he gets all the time. People, I see it even today. It's like, why did Ross say that? He needs to tell us. I'm like, do you know about sources, right? You understand a journalist just can't burn a source, because if Ross did tell us where it was, that wouldn't prove anything. We wouldn't be able to go there and storm X location. We still wouldn't know. The people in charge wouldn't admit it. So it's like, and he burned his source. So that's ridiculous for people watching. Think Ross should say that information. Just, it's ridiculous. It would not change anything, and it would
No,
destroy his reputation, and nobody would ever speak to him again as far as sources.
I agree with that. But, I mean, we all know of several locations, whether they're true or not, or, what was recovered, what was found, whether it's truthful. Like, are we sure? Are we sure that Grush gave as much detail to Kirkpatrick as he did to News Nation and to
No, he
Rob?
didn't. He didn't speak with Kirkpatrick. He purposely avoided Kirkpatrick.
So, well, that's what I don't know. All roads lead to
So,
certain players in this narrative. So
But he,
it's been my concern the whole time that if
but he
they
did.
can poke holes in our cosmic club, then everything's out the window.
Yeah, but he did go to the IG and he spoke to the both of the intelligence committees. He was under oath. I think it was like 13 or 14 hours. He sent firsthand witnesses to the IG. Like I said, I do not think the 40 plus people. Well, we only know how many people do we know? Eric Davis, Jim Semivan, Carl Nell, Lou Elizondo, Hal Puthoff. Well, we have like a dozen people maybe. Kit Green. He's talking about 40 plus people. There are people out there who have never heard their names who are involved in this. And so I don't think it all leads to the same group, but we haven't heard from them. So we're stuck. There's really not much we can say about that. We don't know
If they
any of the
decide to
details.
come out, and that's if they continue to come forward. So
Yeah, and it's like the excuse that we've heard is they're afraid for their lives, they're afraid for their jobs, they're afraid for everything. And I understand that. I'm not in their position. I would never say these people have to come out. They must come out. I won't say that. I want them to come out. I want them to go public. We need that. But I don't know what's going on. I don't know what kind of threats they're getting. I don't know if members of Congress are getting threats. I heard the staffers were getting intimidated. So who the hell knows? How much went on with David Grush? What did they do to him? I heard a couple of stories, which I'm not going to repeat. One of them he's already spoken about. But he was intimidated, and we don't know the level of intimidation that went on with other whistleblowers. I just can't judge them from not coming forward. As much as I want them all to come forward.
What do you think about this, like, whistleblower GoFundMe support thing that's arisen?
It's worth a shot. I don't know if that's enough. It depends on what their reasoning is. I mean, if their reasoning is they don't want to ruin their job prospects and lose their job and not have any access because they removed the security clearance like they did with Grush and failed, if that's their reasoning and we raised enough money, that might help. But if they're worried about their family's safety, I don't think any amount of money is going to change that. And they're like, you know what? It's not worth it. I spoke to somebody, it was last year or the year before, who told me, Admiral Wilson, he was asked, now that there's whistleblower protection, are you going to come in and talk about what you know? And Wilson said, speak to my lawyer. And I spoke to this person and I said, honestly, if it's really true and we have craft of unknown origin, non-human, and he knows about it, it's going to change the world. And I understand why he doesn't want to get involved in it. Obviously, it upsets me because it changes everything if we had an admiral coming forward saying, yeah, I went there. But once again, Admiral Wilson, as far as we know, he's not a firsthand witness. He was not allowed into the program if you believe the Wilson Davis notes. So he's not going to solve the problem. So once again, it gets back to what are they being told? What are these firsthand witnesses being told? Are they being threatened with violence? Or is it just administrative intimidation where Grush talks about how you'll lose your clearance and you'll never work again. You can't feed your family. We don't know. Once again, we don't know. We don't know any details of any of that.
With 90 seconds to go here before we have to go to break at the top of the hour, Joe Murgia and Nicole Sakic, our guests tonight. Is there a solution to the Kirkpatrick answer? Doesn't he just have to go away at this point without maybe he's going to throw more parting shots, Joe? We got 1 minute.
Yeah, well, he needs to go away, and we need people to come forward, and Congress needs to hear those people and say, you know what? We need hearings. This is not what we were told by Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. So either he did not find these programs or he lied to us. Either way, let's have hearings and bring these people in front of the American people and the world and let them tell us what they know and go from there and try to get access to these programs. Because even if Congress does find out and the Gang of Eight, they're told where these locations are of these programs and they go and they see a craft and bodies, that doesn't mean they're going to tell us. That's always been my fear. So how do we get beyond that? I don't know. It's once again, it's public pressure, and we don't have enough people yet. Maybe you guys disagree with me, but I don't think our community is large enough to make that much of a difference at this point.
Right.
All right, Joe, I'm going to get you to hold on. Nicole, I'm going to get you to hold on as well, as we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. And when we return with Joe Murgia and Nicole Sakic in this important UFO discussion, are the aliens here? What is all this talk about non-human intelligence? It's a topic that's come up the last few months. It's gaining steam, and we got to talk about it next on Spaced Out Radio of the UFO discussion. Joe Murgia and Nicole Sackett are here. I am your host, Dave Scott. This is Spaced Out Radio, and we will be right back after this break. Stay tuned. Good call, people. Good call so far. That's a fast hour. Fast hour.
You know,
Cool.
I will say this since I like to be a little positive. Like, I do think Kirkpatrick's going to go away, but wouldn't it be nice if he
I'll be right
continued
back.
to look at UFOs and like pulled a J. Allen Hynek and like
Yeah,
looked
it'd
into
be great.
it so hard that he like flip flopped and was like, "Holy shit, this is real." So
Yeah, that would be amazing. And the part of me, the extreme, not likely, but you're like, maybe he's just trying to piss off the first-hand whistleblowers so they come forward. That's not what he's doing. But obviously, it's like that would be amazing. He's like, I'll show them. I'll just insult all of them, and they'll just come forward and say, "No, he's a liar." But I don't think that's what's going on.
I
But a Hynek version 2 would be great. To have somebody like that, it would
I
just give it
know, but
that much more credibility.
we're getting Condon version 2 though. And that's my like worst case scenario is that, he was tossed this job, he doesn't really want it. The agenda was set to him, from the get-go. Like Condon, that's the whole 2 years. He was like, "Well, we've looked into this, but we've already decided." So is that what we're facing with Arrow? It's like everything's already been decided, but they're just going through the motions. That's my biggest fear right there. Like, so
Yeah,
the only thing that like makes it better to me is if Arrow continues, Phillips, takes over for real or they replace the head, but that sort of like overturn always sucks for any group or business or endeavor. So it's kind of like starting all over again to some extent. But the goal with Arrow should be for it not to disappear. It has to stay around and continue to get better, is what it needs to do.
but
So
he,
if
he,
it
he says
disappears, then it's exactly what I said. It was there to serve its purpose. It did it. It was predetermined, and now it's done and gone.
he says
So
he says that they're not goal, but they're there to make sure that we don't suffer from technological surprise. And he has hinted that he thinks a lot of this is foreign adversarial technology, and he says that they're not there to discover extraterrestrial life. And all right, whatever. We need to get beyond that. I understand that's where we are right now because most people don't believe we're being visited by anybody or anything. But we're
oh,
going
I'll be
to.
back. I gotta let Buster in. It's raining.
Okay.
I'll be back. Filthy, keep talking to
I
Joe.
I think we need whistleblowers to come out and leak information. We need leaks. We need really, really good leaks that have provenance so people can't question it. We've had leaks. Most of the leaks have come. I don't know if the gimbal and Go Fast and Tic Tac would be considered a leak. I know they bent the rules a little bit, Lou and Chris Mellon, but then we had the other leaks related to 2019 in the West Coast, which I think are unexplained to this day, even though people think they were drones. Whatever they were, the folks on those ships did not know what they were. They didn't know where they originated from. They didn't know where they went to. So they're unexplained. Jay Stratton has spoken about that when he was at Alien Con. So it's not, people are like, Jeremy Corbell is making up stuff. That originated from Jay Stratton. Jay Stratton is really, really sharp. When he was in place, the reason when you had Susan Goff confirming that a few of the videos that Corbell put out were taken by Navy personnel and they were used in the UAP, I think she said examinations. The reason why she admitted that is because Jay Stratton had her admit that. He's above her. I think he's a full bird colonel. Even higher. I think he was the equivalent of an admiral. He didn't really want to say it. It was Travis Taylor who said that. So Jay Stratton was telling you that those objects on the West Coast 2019, they were unexplained. They were UAP. They weren't drones. And if they were drones, they were, as Travis Taylor said, they were drones that we had never seen before. Maybe they belong to a group of rich oligarchs. He was open to everything, including the other bucket. But we don't know. We don't know. And why am I bringing up Jay Stratton?
Yeah, why are you bringing up Jay Stratton? Why don't
I'm
you
just.
bring up
Yeah.
Tim Taylor?
Oh,
Why
that's
don't
another thing, and I've written about this, and for some reason, people never ask me about it. Don't ever say anything. Jay Stratton is the reason we're here. Jay Stratton found the crash retrieval program, not physically. I don't think he actually went to it. He found the paperwork, just like Admiral Wilson did in '97. Then Jay Stratton got David Grush, brought him in, said,
Well, so
"Go
did
look
Dick
for the."
D'Amato. Dick D'Amato found it too.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Dick D'Amato got to the level of what Jay Stratton got. But anyway, Jay Stratton, but Dick D'Amato's a huge name.
I know.
I
Nobody
wish he was
knows
still.
it either.
Right. I hope he's still involved on some level. I remember it's one, Stephen Greer said, and I know Greer is controversial, but Greer was there in '97 when Wilson was briefed by Miller and Mitchell and the other two folks. But Greer said that when he spoke to Dick D'Amato, Dick D'Amato said, "Dr. Greer, this is the varsity team of all special access programs. I've never experienced anything like this." Yeah, because it's the biggest secret in the history of the planet if it's really non-human technology.
All
Advanced
right,
black
guys.
technology. Advanced
Sorry,
black
Joe,
tech.
to cut you off there. I
Right.
got to get going here. We're on in 10 seconds. Big
Come
thank
on,
you to
baby,
W.
let's go on.
T-Bone, Jeremy, Pix, Candy, Mama Catherine, Jeremy again, and Android for the super chats. Here we go with hour 2, everyone.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Dactyliomancy. Dactyliomancy is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. We continue on with Joe Murgia and Nicole Sackage. The UFO discussion is what we are calling this. We're having an incredible discussion. We're going to get into non-human intelligence. For those of us who've been here prior to 2017, it's aliens, it's extraterrestrial. Now it's NHI, Joe. Do you think that we have NHI?
I say I believe 100% that the phenomenon represents something anomalous and something that, at the very least, presents itself as non-human. I mean, it could be future humans with advanced technology where they could take the form of something non-human because they don't want us to know they're humans from the future. I'm just thinking of all possibilities. But whatever it is anomalous. Do we have craft of unknown origin? Do we have intact craft? I highly suspect that we do. I don't know. The way I would know is if I saw it with my own eyes and we had people who we trusted saying, here it is. Don't have that. Do we have bodies? Once again, I highly suspect that we do. I mean, you're bringing people into I don't know who it was, if it was Senate staffers, but they're being brought in, these folks that Grush brought in, and they're being told and shown reports, these are non-human bodies we have. Here's the physiology, and this is why we think this. So either it's some gigantic psyop, which I really can't explain why they would go through all of that, or we really do have it. But do I know 100% sure we have that? No. Do I believe that there's a non-human presence here? I do. And if I'm wrong about that, then my analysis has been horrible for the past 30, whatever years it's been. But we still don't have the smoking gun evidence. Again, we don't have that. We have anecdotes. We have a lot of anecdotes with a lot of people like yourself, so many other people people have been experiencing things they can't explain. They've seen beings that aren't human. So I don't think it's all black technology making people see things. Maybe the non-human intelligence can manipulate perception. I really do think that's going on. And to get to the point of proving it, that's the next step. And I know it's a giant hurdle we need to overcome. I don't know how we get there, but I don't know. Maybe the evidence that's locked up in these unacknowledged special access programs, maybe it's so overwhelming that if we get to see any of it, well, it'll be just like, obviously, that's a non-human intelligence right there. That's what it is. Where they're from, we don't know. What they are, we don't know. But that's certainly not us. And in the break, I just want to bring up, we always talk about Grush, but the reason Grush went looking for the crash retrieval program and other UAP programs is because Jay Stratton found the UAP crash retrieval program, and I believe the related programs. I think paperwork-wise, he located it. Here we go. I don't think he actually went and got access to it. But just like in 1997, when Admiral Wilson found everything in the paperwork, Jay Stratton did too. Then he brought in David Grush and said, go look. You have the need to know. You have the access. I'm giving you the edict. Go look for these programs. And that's what Grush did. And then 4.5 years later, whatever it was, he had his information. He was convinced 100%. And Nicole brought up another person who doesn't get a lot of credit, Dick D'Amato. Giuliano Marankovich has done great work on D'Amato. Also, Keith Basterfield has done great work on Dick D'Amato, and I've tweeted about it on there. I've used Giuliano and Keith's work before. Also, Nicole, you work with Grant. Going back to Bodies and Craft, you go back to Wilbert Smith and his conversations with Robert Sauerbacher. You know, even back then, once again, it's not firsthand, but it goes all the way back. Is it all some big ruse? I don't think so. I don't know for sure.
Well,
Obviously,
let
we
me
don't know
chime
for sure.
in. Let me chime in with NHI for a second and take us on a journey back through our community. You know, this started off as like aliens or space brothers. We then moved it on and started calling it extraterrestrials. Occupants, UFO occupants was thrown around for a while. And really, I think when I first started hearing NHI was in the surge of thinkers, thought leaders in our community like Keel and Valet moving past the extraterrestrial theory into the multi-dimensional whatever theory. Then this kind of segued into players like Edgar Mitchell and doing the Free Foundation survey and CCRI continuing it. With the Free Foundation survey, that's the first time I started hearing NHI used throughout our community pretty regularly. And it's been like a buildup since then. CCRI released their data, NHI was all over that. So I'd just like to throw in the history lesson.
I just think it's the right thing to say since we don't know origin. We don't know even if, you know.
I said Keel and Valet because this enters us into the world of beings. What are these beings that people encounter? Are they angels? Are they fairies? Are they the goblins? Are they jinn? Are they, all these things that we now lump in beyond extraterrestrial or alien. So NHI is kind of a catch-all or an umbrella, but
And even in Operation Trojan Horse, John Keel refers to the early 50s. I don't remember the names of the authors, but even then they were like, they're talking about, he uses the word paraphysical. So basically it's nothing physical. It's an intelligence that's not physical. Somewhere not extraterrestrial. So they were even talking about it in the early 50s, which was amazing to me. I didn't know that people were even conceiving of something not extraterrestrial. So, and that book really opened my mind to other possibilities, but I don't know if he was right. Eric Davis read that book in 8th grade. Gary Nolan recommended it to me. Jim Semivan said he's read it 3 or 4 times. They put a lot of weight into that book. But You know, I don't know. I don't know if John Keel was right. He's written other books, and he went back and forth in some of his books and on theories. He was him and Valet. Yeah, it's like, and people get mad when you bring that up on Twitter. People are like, that's all mumbo jumbo. I'm open to the possibility that there are extraterrestrials, but then you're talking about something non-physical, and there's no evidence for that. I'm like, all right, then I
Even
like it,
Grant,
though.
that's like Grant calls it the intelligence behind the phenomenon, if you listen to him. So
Right, and that might be like,
where
very
Valet has called the phenomenon the invisibles in the past, like people call them the invisibles. So there's lots
very
of different little names of how people say what their beings are. So that's where I think NHI is kind of I think it's a good term. It's not a bad one. I like it almost as much as I like Michael Masters. What is it, Dave? Extraterrestrials.
interesting.
Extraterrestrials. That's right.
Extraterrestrials is actually an awesome new name. I like where he was going with
It's a good name for a restaurant too.
that.
Right.
But
Yeah, I would.
this is temporal. It deals with time. It's more than just physical. So extraterrestrials kind of works for me.
Of course it
Yeah,
does.
maybe. Yeah. I mean, the time traveler theory is one of the more interesting theories to me. I don't know if that's what we're dealing with, but it would be pretty cool if that's part of what we're dealing with. I don't think it's everything. And like I said, I still don't know if we're dealing with a bunch of different origins, or we're dealing with one intelligence presenting itself and pretending to be multiple different origins. I don't know. It seems like somebody like Nolan leans towards the latter, one intelligence. It's great to even see Leslie Kane in one of her recent, within the past year, 6 months, she's like, I think there's a connection between the phenomenon and seances and the paranormal, which,
Is she
yeah, I mean,
talking about that now? Because
she she connected them
yeah.
because she's worked with Stuart Alexander, who is a physical mediumship, and she said on 2 occasions.
Well, and that's what I mean. Like the big article broke in 2017, and the next article she put out was on physical mediumship and the wax hands and some circles that she had visited. So I hadn't heard her really expand upon her connecting the dots but I liked that. To me, that was a
Yeah,
subtle hint as to where people go with this. So
I never
What do
thought
we?
about it until I read some of Keel's in Operation Trojan Horse, and yeah, in a séance room, allegedly the physical medium is creating. Leslie saw a human hand being created out of thin air, allegedly from the ectoplasm from the physical medium. And we also see craft in the sky just appear out
well,
of
what was
nowhere.
it
Is
with
it the same? Is it the same intelligence? I don't know.
What was the story with the Apports and Edgar Mitchell's flight pen that he had like lost for 2 years?
Yeah, it was
Did it come out in Ingo Swan's mouth?
Uri
Like
Geller.
Yuri,
Uri
yeah.
Geller. And people reject Uri Geller. Oh, he was on Johnny Carson, and look, he wasn't able to do what he wanted to do. You need to look deeper into Uri Geller and speak to people who actually met him. Speak to Kit Green, who actually tested him early on. But there are other people that do some stuff that Uri Geller did. And it's not Uri Geller. It's not even connected to Uri Geller. But yeah, he was with Edgar Mitchell, and all of a sudden Geller bit into something, and it was a tie tack that Edgar Mitchell had lost in some other state. It's
Yeah.
like, and Mitchell's like, that's the tie tack. I knew what it was. I lost it, and it came in his mouth. What the hell is that?
And then
It's like,
moments later, the back of the tie tack was there
it just
too.
dropped out of thin air. It's like, that's so ridiculous. It's a ridiculous story, but it's like, I don't think Edgar Mitchell made it up. Unfortunately, Uri Geller loves the spotlight, and he talks about himself, and he likes to promote himself. So he has a very negative. He has a negative. A lot of people have a negative opinion of him, but there are other people that are like, he may cheat at times, but he's got real abilities, and it's I don't mind talking about him, even though I'm going to get a lot of flack, especially on Twitter. Sorry, he's a fraud. End of
That's
story. I'm
all of
like,
them,
nope.
though. It does not work all the time. Whatever they can do, it doesn't work all the time.
Well, these
So
people are saying it
his
never
problem of
works.
it is they can learn how to fake a lot of it to still get through a lot of stuff. But
Yeah, he's a magician too. He's a magician too. And it's like, but a lot of the same people will say the same thing about anything paranormal. There's nothing to remote viewing, which I tell them, listen, I studied with Lynn Buchanan for 3 days at his basic remote viewing class. I studied with Prudence Calabrese. I'm not a psychic, but when I did what they told us to do, I got results. I'm like,
yeah. Are
that's
you going to
nuts.
take Joe McGonigal's class that he's offering through Monroe? Are
Yeah,
you
I
going to
would
take?
love to. I would love to go there one day. I mean, I don't have plans to do it, but I do tell people if you're gonna reject it,
Doing
at
it
least try
online.
it.
You can do it
Try it.
online.
Yeah, there's a video I always share. It's like a 20-minute instructional video. Just try it. It's really basic. It'll take you half an hour to do a session. See what you come up with. Don't just reject it because you think it's crazy. But I do think there's a connection. Obviously, you do too to the UFO phenomenon. It's
I do.
consciousness related. It's about human abilities and capabilities, which are so much more than what we were taught. We're capable of a lot more, in my
Let's
opinion.
let's go on to whistleblowers here, because we know David Grush has come out. We know that up to 40 others have testified in front of Congress, but have yet to be able to go public yet. And I've heard a number of stories behind the scenes as to the reason why, and that's because they're waiting for whistleblower protection. So that way, in case something happens with their careers, there's some sort of financial compensation that takes care of that, or protecting their current jobs. When do we expect to see, Joe, more whistleblowers to back up David Grush's types of claims?
I have no idea, Dave. Even if I had heard a date, I would say I would not share it. I've
Yeah.
learned my lesson. When I hear things, first of all, I don't know if they're going to be as good as I was told, and second of all, stuff doesn't happen when you expect it to happen. There are people that were predicting explosive stuff for the end of last year. People talking about the United States government officials announcing that we're not alone and there's a non-human president. That's going to happen by this date and this date. We have 2027 coming up. I don't know. I don't know when whistleblowers are going to feel comfortable coming out. I just don't think about it. I don't obsess over it every day. I mean, I'll talk about everything related to that, but people are getting frustrated. I'm not getting frustrated. Do I have days where I'm frustrated? Yes, but overall, there's so much more stuff that I can read about and share with people. There's stuff I need to learn about. There's stuff in the history of ufology I don't know about. So my answer to when are whistleblowers coming forward, I don't know. And it may hurt our momentum the longer it doesn't happen, but there's nothing we can do about it. It just keep doing what we're doing.
Nicole, your thoughts?
I think that is probably, it's like Joe said, but I think the only thing I could add is that it might be subjective to each whistleblower. They're still going to have to go through a review or a DOPSer, depending on if they worked for the Department of Defense. And we know those processes can take a while. I think Lou is under DOPSer review of what he could release in his book or this film or any project that he's involved. So I think every single whistleblower that's going to come forward has to face that sort of timeline and review process as well. So
And Lou did say, I think it was yesterday, he said that there should be an announcement on his book coming up soon. And people are like, it's only a book. I'm like, yeah, but there could be some stuff in there that we can follow up on. I cannot wait to read his book. I want to see what he lets out in that book. What haven't we been told about Lou? What surprises are in there that he's hinted out? Where he's like, oh, when you read this, you're going to be like, oh, and now I get it. What? I have no idea what he's talking about. So I'm looking forward to that book, his documentary. Are there going to be any firsthand whistleblowers in his documentary? I don't know. James Fox said he was going to have firsthand whistleblowers. What kind of firsthand whistleblowers? Do they have backing witnesses to back up what they're saying? Are we going to believe them? Or is it going to be enough for the mainstream media to follow up with them? I don't know. I don't know.
Speaking of the one story that everybody keeps asking, why is Lou Elizondo not stepped in front of Congress yet? If anybody we thought would have by now, it's Lou. Joe, do you have any inside information on that?
I don't. And it's not a question I rack my brain thinking about. I see other people talking about it. I also see some of those same folks calling Lou a liar. So which I find extremely ridiculous. It's like, I'm not saying Lou's perfect, but as far as why he hasn't testified in front of Congress, I don't know. People are like, well, he wants to get his book out first. I'm like, I don't think that's the reason. Whether or not he testifies after his book comes out, I don't know. I think he has he's spoken about how he has spoken to Sean Kirkpatrick. He went in and briefed Kirkpatrick. That took place. He tweeted about that. As far as in front of Congress, yeah, we all want to see that. I don't think there's anything nefarious going on as to why he hasn't testified under oath. People are insinuating, well, he hasn't gone under oath because then he'll have to tell the truth. I'm like, give me a break. He's not. What part that Lou has been pretty careful and pretty limited in what he has said. He's speculated about things. He's put out, what would you think of if everything you were told in Sunday school and at the dinner table turned out to be not true? He's had conversations like that, but he hasn't had specifics. He won't say crash retrieval of intact craft. He'll only say exotic materials. Maybe he goes further in the book. But I'd be guessing, I'd be speculating as to why he hasn't testified under oath. We will see that. I just don't know when. And that's going to be must-watch TV, along with, and is Lou a first-hand whistleblower? You know, we heard Danny Sheehan a couple of years ago, or it was Greer. Stephen Greer said, Danny Sheehan came up to me and said that Lou told him that he saw an extraterrestrial craft in a government facility. So, and then you asked, and we don't know if that story is true, but then you asked Lou, has he ever seen a gray? And Lou was, you know, it's like the way he answered, you're like, he might have seen a gray, and maybe that gray was in formaldehyde. I don't know. So he may be a first-hand witness. I'm not sure. But yeah, when
I asked him, and you were one of the only people, Joe, to pick up on it when I first interviewed Lou, I asked him point blank if he had ever been in contact with or seen aliens. And he kind of dodged the question, and I kind of explained, you know, little gray dudes with big black eyes. And he answered that very nefariously with the kind of reading between the lines that, yes, he has been in contact, by saying, yes, I have seen some strange things over the years. You know, and that to me.
But in every case, I needed more data. That's what he said. So I don't know if he's saying, you know, if you were to ask him, have you seen an extraterrestrial? The more data would make sense, because if you're shown a body, you don't know it's extraterrestrial. You don't know it's extraterrestrial. You could say it appeared to be non-human. You don't know origin. It could be interdimensional that created a body physically. It could be extraterrestrial. It could be a time traveler. So that, you know, missing data part made sense. But yeah, he was cryptic, but he gave you more than he gave anybody else as far as on that line. And it was a great question. So yeah, Lou as a witness could be explosive, but his book should be coming soon, or an announcement soon. So we won't have too much longer to wait. And also his documentary he's connected to, hopefully there's something in there that catches the Washington Post, New York Times, Wall Street Journal. We need them. We need those outlets to report on this without Julian Barnes dismissing it. You know, who is the guy? Shane Harris, I think, from the Washington Post, said he has spoken to 6 whistleblowers. Not one article. So I don't know what he's waiting for. And then, of course, 60 Minutes, which would be the gold standard. They never followed up on their UAP story. That needs to happen too. You know, will we get it? I don't know.
Have we heard if Lou's newest film project is kind of like in the vein of Unidentified, or if it's kind of a different sort of plot, like layout? Because if you follow along Unidentified, like he was sort of revisiting some maybe Jacques Vallée cases, you know, that, you know, and they were kind of putting them in the lens of Unidentified, or maybe how they investigated them through ATIP. It might be one way to look at it. So I've wondered if this newer show is going to be an expansion on that, or if they're visiting more known cases, sites, places, people, or if it's more of like current disclosure. So I don't know.
And on that, Joe, hold that thought, because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. We have Joe Murgia and Nicole Sackich for another 30 minutes on Spaced Out Radio as we talk about ufology, the UFO discussion. It continues right after this, and we're going to take some audience questions as well. Spaced Out Radio, second half, is right after this break. Stay tuned.
Yeah,
Guys, we are nailing it out of the park right now.
I'm glad it's going well. I'm hesitant. I don't ask sources for as much information as I used to because, number one, I usually can't share it. Number two, sometimes it doesn't happen. So it's like, just let it play out, let it happen, and then comment on it afterwards. So it's not, for me, I used to really want to know what's coming. And I would have people sometimes even unsolicited tell me this is what's coming. But now it's like has slowed down, and I don't push as much because, like I said, I can't share it. I can hint at it, and then people get upset with me. You're gatekeeping. I'm like, I'm trying to share as much as I can, without pissing off sources, because many times sources will not tell you that, they will not say you can share this, you cannot share this. I had somebody tell me one time something really interesting. I'm like, can I share that? And they're like, no, you cannot share that. I'm like, okay, well, you need to say that. So I've learned to just figure out what I can and can't share and just do it. And then I have not gotten in trouble yet. I haven't upset anybody. I came close once, but it's really it's like a minefield trying to figure it out. And then there are other sources who will say, this is what you can share, this is what you can't share, and you can't name me. You can obviously you can never name them. They don't want to be named. Occasionally, I have gotten quotes from people on the record naming them, but usually not.
Right. Joe, I'm going to ask a favor. I'm going to ask a favor because you put this out on Twitter and we got 698 people watching on Twitter. Thank you for that and exposing us to your Twitter account. Very much appreciate that. I want to ask as a favor, if I could ask your followers, we are 28 followers away from 10,000. I would love to hit 10,000 followers on Twitter tonight. So if you don't mind, you like this show and like what we do, go on over on X and hit that follow button on Twitter. We really would appreciate it. And thank you for that, Joe. I appreciate the exposure.
Oh, of course. And I know tonight I'm saying a lot of times I'm saying I don't know, but that's just the truth. I don't know. I don't want to make up something, and I don't want to push and promise anything and tell people and get people's excitement up when I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Either way, I enjoy this no matter what happens. If I didn't, I wouldn't be doing it. I wouldn't be spending all day on Twitter and trying to find books and audio clips like a lot of people do. I wouldn't be. Some of my tweets are really, really long because they're transcriptions and I add in my own thoughts, not because I'm trying to people like you're trying to make money. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm doing it. I need money to keep doing it to pay bills, but I do it because I don't know why I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed to be putting out ridiculously long tweets where most people aren't doing that, but that's how I am. I like doing it. And even if we don't get the sudden first-hand whistleblower coming next week, I'm still going to do it. Have I thought about, now I'm asking myself my own questions, Dave. Have I thought about,
but I do it all the time.
Have I thought about not doing this at this level and having a normal life? Yes, I have, but I don't think that will ever happen. I can't see myself pulling away because the first thing I wake up in the morning, I'm like, what can I find? What can I find that's interesting and share? And then when I do my regular job, when I'm working as a camera guy, I'd rather be doing my UFO stuff. So even though I love my camera work and I work in concerts and, it's great, but this is the stuff that I love doing. And I do think 2024 is going to be a good year. I don't know if it's going to be the blockbuster year we all want, but I think it's just going forward. It's going to get better every year.
I do have to ask you, what's it like seeing Adele in concert?
I was not an Adele fan beforehand, and now it's like, I mean, there's certain songs that I really, really, really like, and she's amazing. I mean, she is an amazing singer, and she's just, when you're there, her voice is just so powerful. And the show is not a lot of ballads, and I'm not really a ballad guy, except 80s hair band ballads, but she also has some up-tempo songs, and the show, there's the gigantic screens that she shows. So it's visually It's
I
a
would
great
love
show
to see
visually.
that.
It's just so
I'm a fan.
expensive. It's ridiculously expensive. The cheapest seats are usually between 500 and 1,000, you know, and the front row goes on StubHub for like 25,000, and people pay that. When I worked on Usher, the same thing, a really tough ticket to get, totally different show. But yeah, I'm hoping, you know, I think the Killers are coming soon, which would be a great show to work on, and maybe Rush will come, the last two members of Rush. But yeah, it's a good show if you can get in. And usually at Caesars, like when Rod Stewart comes, we could bring family and friends. Same thing with Sting, which I loved, but not with Adele. Just we don't get to bring family and friends to that one, unfortunately, because it's a great show.
Hold on, buddy. Here we go. Thank you to our super chatters tonight. We're going to go right now. Here we go again on Spaced Out Radio. The second half is underway. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate you tuning us on in, especially all of the listeners over on X right now. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Final half hour, Joe Murgia, Nicole Sackich are here. The UFO discussion continues, and we're going to get into some audience questions here, guys, because the audience wants to know what's going on as well. And we're going to start off with Mama Catherine here, who's asking, Joe, what about full-page ads in the New York Times or other MSM to get in front of the negative media coverage?
Yeah, that would be great. The last full-page ad I remember, I think it was the USA Today, and I think it was around the late 90s when Joe Firmage took out a full-page ad with quotes from various people commenting on UFOs, like General Twining and other folks, and it was a full-page color ad, which I have somewhere. And it was based on his book, The Truth. I haven't seen anything like that. And it was like in the late 90s.
Rockefeller talked about doing that as well, or threatened it even, you know, and that's allegedly how he got to push his initiative forward a little bit, you know, because Rockefeller, you know, has ties to newspaper industries, and he could have, every paper worldwide probably could have had a front page UFO thing. But I've gone to my own newspapers around Illinois, and it's a hard sell. Honestly, it's a hard sell.
Yeah, it would help if we had a full page ad in the New York Times and different quotes from people. I'm not sure though what I was going to say about Lou's documentary. I don't know. We need one of two things from his documentary. We need either firsthand whistleblowers to come forward, or, and preferably both, or we need a name to be in that documentary where it's going to get the attention of a lot of people saying, damn, that guy believes that? Really? You know, so either or both. And a full page ad would be a great idea. You just have to find the funding and figure out what you want to put in there.
Yeah.
I agree. All right, let's move on to Kim. Joe, why did you undermine the New York Times stories by busting their stories before publication?
Yeah, and I think they're still mad. I think they're both, Leslie and Ralph, are still mad at me about that. And
they were mad at me and Grant too. Everybody was. So
I had my own sources for that, and whether or not they were the same sources that the New York Times was speaking to, that's not my problem. It's not my problem that I did my work and it turned out my information and sources overlapped with some of theirs. Now, if I had to do it over again, would I have toned down some of what I was putting out at the time? Because I was doing a lot of it. Yes, I wouldn't have done as much as I had done on Twitter, but I would have done the blog, the mega blog I worked on, Wilson Davis. I would have done that the same way. I mean, I can't even talk about certain details because it was private conversations, but yeah, I know for a fact that at least one or two of the people I was dealing with, at least one person was going to be in the New York Times article and they were
Yeah.
not. So, but yeah, I mean, you could say for the greater good, you should have just shut up and waited. But I don't know. I worked
No,
really hard on that mega blog. It was over 23,000 words. I did my own reporting, my own sources, and I'm sorry if it undermined them at all. But
no, you know what,
you know,
Joe? You've worked with enough journalists over the years as a cameraman, and I've worked with enough journalists. Tough crap. Okay, if you got the story, you don't sit there and wait for somebody else to break the news that you have. You go with it yourself. And you know what? If they wanted to wait, that doesn't matter. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. I mean, when I broke stories in my radio career, and I'm not saying this just because you're on the air with me, but when I broke stories in my radio career as a journalist, I wasn't waiting for the local newspaper to have it first because I wanted to make them have the story. Hell with that. If I got the story, I'm running with it. That's just
right.
the way it is. Nicole.
I was going to say, I think a lot of the controversy came because people like Joe and people like Grant also had inside sources as to what was going on with this article. So the fear was that by creating all this stir around it, we were causing certain elements to be cut out of this article, which I don't think is true. I think what was cut and what was changed and things that were left out happens in any sort of editorial process, especially when you're talking about the New York Times and their level of scrutiny. So I think it's just one of those, chalk it up to our community is actually like a heartbeat ahead of breaking this news, like with everybody else. So when you do listen to people who are on the forefront of that, then pay attention, like root them on. I was Joe. That's pretty much how we met. I was like, "Go, Joe, go, go, Joe, go! Keep posting, post more."
And I just luckily, fortunately, synchronicity wise, I was friends with Eric Davis and Will Miller, two of the three main people in the Wilson Davis document. So yeah, I'm gonna
Well,
talk to them, and I got
and
quotes from
I'm
Eric
going to
Davis in
say
there.
that UFO Twitter often underestimates the people that have been in this for decades and decades. If they were just coming into this, they knew the insider reporters that work for the Post and the New York Times and all these places. They have networks and connections. So, you know, can't
And
can't fault
All
people for
right.
that.
I didn't even do anything special. I was just in the right place at the right time. I made the right friends, and then it happened, and they're like, "Oh, that's interesting." So yeah.
Break it, Joe. Never hold back. Break it. Let's go to Jules here. Do you know why Stephen Greer fell from favor with the government types?
I know why. Well, I don't know about why he fell from favor. I don't know if he has fell from favor from government types. I know he fell from favor with a lot of us. It's because, I mean, ego is a big part of it. Just watching him, he never. I don't think he's ever admitted to being wrong. Um, he did some great work early on. His disclosure. What was it called? Disclosure Project. Was it 2000? When he
Yeah.
did the press conference at the National Press Club. And like I said, he outed Admiral Wilson, which was a good thing. He's the first one. I think he mentioned Admiral Wilson's name on September 12th, 2001, the day after September 11th, 9/11. But over the years, you know, he talks a lot about black technology. He talks about how abductions are all, I think he believes they're all black technology. They're not extraterrestrials. I think that's what he says. That's controversial. Um, a lot of his black technology stuff may be right. Some of it might be right. He also, the one interesting thing, and I know I'm not answering the question, I just don't know why he's fallen out of favor with certain people. I know people who worked with him, who I spoke with, a couple of people, they did not have good things to say about him. Really, really negative. So they had their personal experiences with him and they were done and they moved away. The one thing Greer talks about interdimensionals being not so great, not so positive, which I didn't even know he talked about. But extraterrestrials, he thinks they're here to uplift us, and there's nothing negative about them. Which maybe he's right. I don't know. But Nicole, maybe you have some other insight into why he's fallen out of favor with some folks.
I was gonna say, I think it's when he launched CE5 as a protocol thing. I think that's, that starts skirting the spirituality side of things. And you can go back, and then there's also cases that were investigated, like the Pensacola cases, and were they really military gunships, like testing things off, in the Gulf, and is that what was picked up? Have people, you know, debunked some of his well-known sightings, and then you also hear about the setups, like if that's true or not. Like, I personally don't think it's true. I don't think you can set up mass amounts of people with rigged things hundreds of miles away, as in like the CE5 circles, and calling in experiences or craft, however you want to put it. I know personally, for me, learning about Greer and coming from the disclosure movement and all of this, very activist government disclosure side, finding out about CE5 was like a giant slap in the face. It was like, what is this side? Like, where does this come from? So, I mean, I imagine a lot of people who aren't into the woo side have that same, reaction to Greer. So,
Yeah, and he gets negative. He gets negative press from the amount of money he charges for those events, and
and see,
you
I
know,
defend that. Like, I think, yeah, that just comes with growing and getting bigger. And I mean, I've said it. I said it during the Wilson Davis Notes release. It takes a big ego to do big things in our community. Whether we want to say it's like he has this messiah complex thing going on, but look at how he crowdsources. Like, it's not just him, getting like a fund or a donation from somebody. Like, he has a whole community of people that support him, and he follows through with what they want to do and what he wants to do, whether it's movies or the disclosure group or bringing forward witnesses. Like, he pretty much does what he says he's going to do. It's just whether or not you like it. I can understand the prices of what he does going up, and it's access to him and how many people you can actually do these types of events with at once. Like, that's success. Like, I'm not going to hammer on somebody for being successful in this. Not very many people are. We tear them down. It takes 200 books for me to break even on a book.
well, my biggest issue with him is telling people that this is positive and they're all here to help us, and we don't know
Right.
that. We don't
Well,
even
and
know if we're dealing with
that's
ETs.
the
That's my biggest
argument
issue.
with anybody's message, though. You know, what Whitley Strieber says, what Travis Walton says, what Greer says, insert the experiencer. Whatever their ultimate, messages that they want to share, we could argue that till the mutilated cows get dropped off. So,
Yeah, Strieber's
Very true.
Strieber's been a little more open about not really knowing motive, and but he has definitely changed over the years. So I don't know.
right.
All right, let's go to Android here. Lou Elizondo recently said they will reveal at a time of our choosing. Both of your thoughts on this. Seems like he's implying they're letting Kirkpatrick dig his hole deeper.
Yeah, I hope that's what's going on. Just like the David Grush op-ed, which has not come out, and I'm like, well, maybe he's trying to wait to see what Kirkpatrick says so they can respond to that. So that's a really good insight, and I hope that's what's going on, and I hope we have some ammo to rebut what Kirkpatrick has been saying, because I know it's upset people behind the scenes, and there really is no response right now. And hopefully Lou is talking about a response that really is strong and makes a difference and gets the attention of a lot of people. But I don't know. I'm guessing. I'm speculating.
Nicole?
I don't disagree with Joe. I think this is going to play out. It's kind of like I said before. I think this has a predestined element to it, and yeah, I mean, it's what I said. If Arrow closes up shop and goes away, you know, served its purpose. If it sticks around, if it gets new leadership, continues to get better, then that will speak for itself. So,
Okay. I think Lou is letting a lot of people bury themselves in this field. And why not? I mean, if you have the connections that are going on behind the scenes, you don't need to speak publicly about them. You could actually do more work behind the scenes to get the message through. I mean, and I'm sure that all the representatives from Congress already have his personal phone number and can talk to him at any time. That would just make sense. So it's very much, I think, a plan to try and bury some of these negative Nancy's out there, to say it politely, who are trying to shoot down the UFO story as much as they are.
Yeah,
And let's go ahead
no,
if you want to respond.
they're trying to say that Lou and everybody else who has briefed Congress, for people who aren't seeing that online, basically they've fooled Congress into putting through this legislation when there's really nothing there. So for me, that's really poor analysis. I mean, Lou is going in there and other people briefing them. There's obviously something there. You don't get Schumer and Rounds and the 6 other senators to sign off on language talking about non-human intelligence 22 times, talking about bodies and technology. You don't get that without presenting information where they're going to stick their neck out and put their name on legislation. I don't see that happening. So I think that theory that they've been tricked by Lou, members of Congress have been tricked, is ridiculous. But we'll see. We'll see, because we don't have the evidence once again at this point. And Lou and everybody, it's up to you. I think they'll come true. They'll come through, and 2024 is going to be interesting.
Nicole, your thoughts? Do you think Lou has enough connections going on right now that he could be letting a lot of these players bury themselves publicly?
who publicly? I mean, I don't know if Lou is. I wouldn't say Lou is waiting on anybody, but we've heard that the opposition might be waiting for like this political stage to turn. So, I mean, Kirkpatrick's kind of in that political arena. He could be removed or replaced. He resigned. There's somebody new. But, all these politicians that are involved in our disclosure movement right now, they're elections away from, they could be replaced and not be there through another cycle. So, maybe, we've heard for a long time, that what was it like when we shifted from gear 1 to gear 2 to gear 3, like somewhere in there we heard that like the frauds and the phonies or whatever, like people were going to start getting called out, but who? I don't know.
Yeah, and Lou the other day, he said more and more members of Congress now realize this is real. So yeah, we may lose somebody in election. I think Gallego, who hasn't spoken about UFOs in a while, he was there early on in the legislation. He's battling a tough political fight this year. But as long as more and more people are being briefed, and the right people, then it's less of a danger of hurting us if somebody gets knocked off in an election. Burchett, they may put somebody up to run against him. But I think hopefully if Lou is right and there are more and more people in Congress who know about this and realize how serious it is, then it won't matter if we lose a couple of seats to people who aren't open to the UFO topic.
Well,
And
it matters if they're not on, Senate select committees and, these special places.
right. If we were to lose like Rubio and some of the folks that like Schumer, let's say they wanted to reintroduce a Schumer rounds like legislation. If we were to lose them, that would hurt, obviously. Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay, let's go to our final question tonight, as we got 5 minutes to go with Joe Murgia and Nicole Sackich. And this is from Sweet Tony D in the UK. Do you guys think Sean Kirkpatrick is playing on words and dodging the real question when he refers to the NHI as extraterrestrial?
Yeah, I've thought that before. I'm like, maybe not. But then in his last op-ed, it's all over the place. He's talking about extraterrestrials. So maybe. I'm not sure if he is or not. You would think he would say, I have no evidence of non-human technology, no evidence of non-human craft, but he almost always says extraterrestrial. So I'm not sure if it's intentional or not, but that would be a great question for somebody who knows the subject to say, by the way, why do you always say extraterrestrial when the people involved, like David Grush, say we don't know origin?
Right.
Good possibility, unless they do know.
They may know. They could know. I don't know. If you listen to the people, you talk about Eric Davis and Gary Nolan and Lou, they all publicly say we don't know. Christopher Mellon. If somebody knows and they're in some of those programs and they have the data to back it up, that would be amazing. It would help if they could prove it. I would love to know what we're dealing with. Like everybody wants to know, what the hell are we dealing with?
Well, they do love their acronyms. I will say that. They
well,
love
at
their
least AIMSOG is gone. AIMSOG is long gone.
Oh my God.
That was horrible.
I forgot about OMSIG.
So did I.
AIMSIG.
Yeah.
I did like UAPTF. I liked saying that.
Yeah, and then who said it the other day? It was Corbell and Knapp said they believe it's possible that there was a version of the UAP task force that was around before we heard about it, and it's still going on right now in an informal, unofficial capacity, which would be pretty cool if that was going on. People interested in it and just trying to do their own thing away from Arrow.
The question is, would the government fund two different programs like that?
Yeah, I don't think it would be funded. It would be just like how, because the UAP task force, they just made you. It was basically borrowing other people from other programs, saying, hey, we're going to loan you to this other program for a while. So I don't think they really had much of a budget. So that I think the same thing with this informal, unofficial group. I don't think they have a budget, but they're doing what they can. Kind of like ATIP didn't have much of a budget. I mean, Lou talked about it, but we don't know specifically what ATIP will have. I asked Lou when I interviewed him, I'm like, are you going to talk about specifics on what budget you had? Because that's a bone of contention with people, because the 22 million went to OSAP and people are saying you didn't have a budget. So he said he's going to address that in the book. Hopefully he does. Because I would like to know what budget they had. Not that it's a huge deal, but a detail I would love to know.
Final thoughts, guys, on tonight, because it is that time. We've got about just over 90 seconds to go before we have to say goodnight to both of you. Looking at 2024, what can we expect next after this hidden report comes out from Arrow? Maybe more hearings. Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, we've heard that more hearings are in the works. I don't know who said it. Was it Luna? It might have been Representative Luna. I forget. But hearings from the Oversight Committee are in the works. We would all like to see hearings from the Senate Select Intelligence Committee. That would be a hearing with firsthand whistleblowers. Whether or not we get that, I don't know. And who would the Oversight Committee bring in next? Could it be Lou? We would all love to see Eric Davis unleashed, which would be amazing. It would be amazing if people ever. Say again?
2034.
2034. So just be patient. I say that a lot. Be patient. Stuff's going to happen. Just learn new stuff in the meantime. Go over the history, and just there's more than enough to keep yourselves busy. And don't focus on the day-to-day, hoping it's going to break tomorrow, because you'll drive yourself crazy and you'll get frustrated.
That's definitely the truth. Nicole, how are you going to stay not frustrated during this?
Well, I have too many projects going on to be frustrated with one thing at this moment. And I will say, I think that's something to look forward to in 2024 is we've got a lot of film projects that are about to come out, whether it's 2024 or leading into 2025. I always get excited when James Fox is going to drop a bomb. Like, the Phenomenon was excellent. Whatever he's about to put out is going to be excellent too. So, Lou's film, Grant has Agree.
Joe Murgia and Nicole Sackich, thank you for a great discussion on UFOs tonight. Coming up next on Spaced Out Radio, Steve Stockton from Among the Missing. Robin Haynes has the cryptid report. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
All right, we're clear, guys.
Yay.
All right. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Nicole, for doing this.
That was fun.
That was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you guys doing this. And Joe, you're welcome back anytime, just like Nicole, you know you are.
I was 3 times this week. Is that what just happened?
Yeah, that's what happened. Yeah.
All
You're
right.
going to take the job one day.
And supposedly the historic report's coming tomorrow, allegedly.
I've heard that too.
We'll see. Probably Ross Coulthard said it's extremely negative and it's going to throw cold water on everything. So we expect it. All right, big deal. It'll slow us down a little bit, but it's not going to stop us.
Condon times 2.
Yep.
Condon times 2.
Yep,
Guys, I got
Nicole
to
did say
run.
that.
Take
Thanks,
care,
Dave.
guys.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thanks, space travelers.
Good night, everybody. Well, not for me. I got another hour to go, and we really appreciate you guys coming on in. So thank you very, very much. And we're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we'll get hour 3 started. So we'll see you soon. All right. Thank you, all of you, for sticking around and enjoying tonight's show. And for all you newcomers, don't forget to follow us on Twitter, as well as head on over to YouTube, hit subscribe, ring that bell, as we are here 7 days a week for your listening entertainment. We got Robin in the background. We're going to turn up the woo a little bit with her. Want to remind all of you that May 10th through 12th, 2024, at the Silver Legacy Casino and Resort, you can get your tickets for the 3rd annual SOR fan party. Yeah, we have a bunch of special guests coming, all for you guys. We got a live radio show, VIP party. We have a ghost tour of Virginia City, Skywatch with Melinda Leslie. Yeah, all you got to do is reserve your tickets at info@spacedoutradio.com. info@spacedoutradio.com for the entire weekend. It's $100 for the VIP package. Excuse me. You get a nice swag bag as well. Thank you to W. Decker, T-Bone ×2, Jeremy ×2, Pix, Candy, Mama Catherine, Android, and Adam, Deb, and Sean for the super chats, or Scanman, pardon me. And here we go with the final hour, everyone.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
3rd and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, Dactyliomancy. Dactyliomancy is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read the Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go with Steve Stockton from the YouTube channel Among the Missing for another creepy story.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Among the Missing YouTube channel on Spaced Out Radio. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'm about to take you on an unbelievable journey of people just like you. Their stories and encounters will haunt us on Among the Missing. In 1866, El Ho Canyon, California, situated in Borrego Desert State Park, was little more than a mining claim for prospectors looking to strike gold in the California landscape. Described as one hell of a hole to get cattle out of by a rancher, the area was hard to access and water was scarce. Upon entering the now hiking trail, there's a faux grave marker with the names of those that succumbed to the elements didn't bring enough water to make the journey on the moderate to advanced level 5.5-mile hiking trail. The trail is well maintained and has placards that has information about the flora and fauna one can expect to see in the area. There are several trails in the area to choose from. Some are easy, some moderate, and a few are very advanced. The area is also equestrian friendly if you'd like to go on a horseback ride. Depending on the time of year and the trail chosen to hike, there may be a small stream to pass over at Hill Creek Trail. The preserve is closed in the summer months due to extreme heat conditions. It's open Friday through Monday only, 8 a.m. until sunset each day. So know before you go. Extreme caution must be taken when negotiating this area, as temperatures can and do rise quickly. This is a moderate to advanced trail with no services and no water station. Choose your destination wisely and the trail that best suits your personal hiking abilities. Take plenty of water and wear protective clothing. The area is closed to the public starting in August due to extreme heat conditions. If you're interested in visiting the Hellhole Canyon Preserve, you can find more information online at www.outdoorsocal.com. One of the most recent tragedies due to heat took place in 2021 when 68-year-old Don White was gearing up for the bighorn sheep count that the park puts on every year. Park Services had to cancel counting the last 2 years due to worldwide health concerns that kept people inside their homes at that time. This described nature lover was from the Culver City, California area. I was excited to be helping with the tally that is part of a citizen science project that's been conducted almost every summer for over 50 years. The project draws in people from all over California and beyond that brave the often triple-digit weather in little more than shaded tarps while collecting vital data for scientists that keep track of the herd and health of these magnificent animals. This is crucial for the Park Service because the bighorn sheep were added to the endangered species list in the 1990s. 90 people showed for the planned event, and many more were placed on a waiting list should someone become ill and unable to attend. The response to the volunteer positions were overwhelming, with the turnout of interested parties bringing in a larger group than in years past. As volunteers made their way into the Anza Borrego Desert State Park, temperatures began to climb, reaching 116 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, the Park Service did provide shelter tents for volunteers. However, White was found unresponsive by another of the volunteers in one such tent. Attempts were made to resuscitate the 68-year-old, but White ultimately passed away. It was unclear in given reports as to what the coroner ruled as the ultimate cause of passing, but most speculated it was due to heat exhaustion. And even though he had access to water and had taken measures earlier that month to ensure that he had extra, White had hiked into the area and deposited several bottles of water in anticipation of the heat that July weather in California is notorious for. There's also a creek that runs through the area where White would have been stationed, but because of drought condition, that water source was dried up at the time. On July 19th, tragedy struck as White and a companion were found just after noon by another volunteer. White was pronounced deceased at the scene, with the companion being admitted, treated, and released at an area hospital. A firefighter that aided in the recovery effort was also hospitalized for heat exhaustion. The state made the decision to cancel the herd count out of concern for the safety of the other volunteers and revisited their safety protocols for the event. The count is done in summer months as the bighorn sheep will come in search of water. Don White has been the only victim to succumb to heat during the 50 years of the event.
Thank you to Steve Stockton from Among the Missing for another great story. We want to say thank you and join his YouTube channel at youtube.com/Among the Missing and hit subscribe, ring that bell. From the missing to the mysterious, we head to the mountains and the forest where Robin McCrae is here for the Cryptid Report. All right, Robin Haynes, thank you for coming on in for the Cryptid Report. Very much appreciate every time you're here. You've been battling some illness over the last couple of weeks. Good to have you healthy again.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be back. I missed you guys. How are you doing?
We've missed you too. We've been busy. It's been busy. A lot of UFO stuff going on.
Oh, it's insane.
Yeah. Tell me about it. But I've had some interesting conversations lately with some First Nations people around my area regarding Dogman and regarding UFOs, aliens, and Bigfoot.
Yeah, they're all closely related.
They are very much closely related to First Nations people. And one of the things that I was learning was I was having this story with two members of this band who live north of me. And we were talking about Sasquatch and everything. And I said, do you guys get a lot of Dogman in your area? And he said to me, before our reserve had electricity, we would have to lock our homes up every night because the Dogmen would take over the night in our area.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So my question to you in after that story is, we see a lot of aggression and aggressiveness from these dogman type creature. Why do you think they seem to be way more aggressive than the Sasquatch?
I don't actually think that they all are. Like, I've had really good experiences with them. I've talked to some of the bad ones as well. Number one, you've got several different ways that the dogmans came about. You've got government ones that the government's created, those were made to kill. That's what they were supposed to do. So you've got those out there. You've got different kinds that different groups of ETs have created. You've got some that were brought by different, you can call it magic or whatever you want to call it, some that were born from here. So you've got quite a few different variations of them. And again, it depends on what they're crossed with as far as temperament, aggression, or whatever. I've been fortunate. Like I said, I've dealt with some of the bad ones, but I've had more predominantly good than bad. There was years ago, there was this big plot that I was supposed to get kidnapped, put in a cage, and that was going to bring the Bigfoot in, and then people could bag a Bigfoot. And the Dogmans helped stop that. They've really come through on and off. I've always had them around my property, never had issues with them. They've been perfectly friendly, but their personalities are so drastically different than a Sasquatch. They're much more stoic. They're kind of like the guardians of the woods. It's like when you go out and about and you have police there. Police aren't out there, joking around and screwing around and playing tag in a parking lot somewhere. They're there to guard. Dogmen do as well. And they're much more territorial than even a Sasquatch would be. They're much more stoic and regal, and they really don't want the interaction. Sasquatch wants more interaction out of curiosity, where the dogman just wants to be left in peace. They really do. Very few of them really are there because they're curious about us. There is that exception to every rule. I've known a couple that had a good sense of humor, but where Sasquatch is more of a funny guy and he likes to laugh and he likes to play pranks and stuff. That's not really what the dogmen are about. They're just much more serious. They've got their own set of rules that they live by.
You mentioned guardians of the forest, and that's the way a lot of cryptid researchers tend to look at dogman, wood nymphs, gnomes, Bigfoot, and other cryptid creatures that are out there. What is their role as guardians of the forest, in your opinion?
They kind of police everything. They really do. They keep a very close eye on what goes on. I think that the reason more people get run out of the woods by dogmen than they do perhaps a Sasquatch is because they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. They're guarding the forest. We're now out in their territory. They're not in ours. And that could have a lot to do with it. Do I think all of them are good? Absolutely not. When it comes to any of these cryptids, there's free will involved, which means they can go good or bad. You go to land between the lakes, there's bad ones that go there for a reason, to get the heck away from us. And yet we chase them in there because people don't care if they get a good encounter or a bad encounter, as long as it's an encounter. So these things are over hiding out in the land of the lakes. And a lot of the big ones, or the bad ones, I'm sorry, that have been kicked out of packs, that's where they go. It's kind of like reject land, and they purposely go there. And then because people know they're there, rather than think in their heads, okay, that's where all the bad stuff really sits, I'm going to go in there just so I can see them, and I'm going to be big and bad. Nothing's going to take me down. Well, I got news for you. Yeah, they will. And now you've just gone to the one place that all the bad ones gather, and you're putting yourself out there. And then what happens is somebody of our people get hurt or killed, and then the government comes in and annihilates them. Well, we were the ones that were in there poking the bear. We already knew they were bad. It's not like that's a secret. Anybody that knows cryptids knows land between the lakes is, not a pleasant place. People die there. And we went in there after them, and then their families and everything get annihilated. Not that I'm excusing the behavior. That's not it at all. But if you know something is dangerous, why go there? Leave it alone. Let them stay there by themselves and be isolated. And then the other ones, like I have them around here. I have no issues with mine at all. At all. I've gotten a couple pictures of them. They've never been unkind or unfriendly, but I don't crowd them. I don't, try to interact with them like I do per se the Sasquatch. If I see them out there, I'll mind speak or they'll mind speak very little. I let them live their lives. And if they want interaction, they know how to get a hold of me. And it seems to work a lot better.
We're almost in springtime here. Things are warming up, and obviously more people are going to be taking the time to head into the forest. And one of the topics we talked about this week with other cryptid investigators is clues. What
Oh yeah.
clues do people look for when they are in the forest to know whether or not they are in a Sasquatch area?
Well, I think the first thing they're looking for, of course, are footprints. You know, everybody's always looking for the footprints. And then they're going to look to see if there's structures around. They're going to listen for noises. They're going to listen for wood knocks. They're going to listen for howls or whatever. What I would tell you to do is go in there and see if you can feel the energy. You can feel the energy from them. These are higher frequency, higher energy beings. When you get in there, you're going to feel that change of energy. It's going to be stronger, and it's either going to be pleasant or it's going to be negative. If you pick up the negative energy, that's not your day that you want to be in there. Just leave. Don't create an altercation. Go back a couple days later or a week later, whatever, and you might get a different vibe off of it. So if it feels pleasant, if it feels warm, it feels welcoming, then you know you're okay. But people are going to look first for those footprints. They're going to look for broken branches. They're going to look for stick structures. And then they're going to be listening for anything vocal.
Oh, very true. Very true. And there's a lot of different stick structures. We hear about like the lean-to type of teepees, which are considered bedding grounds or nesting grounds. We hear about trees being ripped out and shoved upside down
Yeah,
with the roots.
territorial markers.
Okay,
Yeah, those are territorial markers. And these little tiny teepees, believe it or not, those are just like temporary shelters. That's all they are. You know, if they're out hunting or whatever, they might get in that. If they want to use it as a blind so the deer won't see them, they can get in it. Those are really not where they live. Those are a temporary thing that are not going to last very long. You get some that look like a lean-to up against a tree, and it's a series of sticks that are leaned up against the tree. That has to do with the amount of the Sasquatch that have come in for a meeting place, and they each lean a stick up against there to signify there was one there. You know, there's also the lean-tos up against the trees where I've had them on my property at times, put babies in it, while they're out hunting and walking around. So there's a number of things, but by all means, please know that those are not their permanent homes. I've been where they actually live and sleep at, and it's not like anything you've ever seen before. And it's definitely not accessible like those little lean-tos are.
Okay,
Those are just a temporary thing.
in your opinion, what causes them to make these lean-to like structures?
Well, like I said, they're going to do it for a number of reasons. One could be out hunting and they're going to use it as a blind. You can have them where maybe, they've sent the hunters out to gather food or whatever, and they're going to be gone a couple days and it'll be a temporary shelter. I've seen them put babies in them. So while they're hunting, the babies are hidden and covered. They can be used as a kind of marker with how many sticks are there. That's how many was in that clan that came through there and had a meeting there.
I can see
So
that.
many things. They also do it like if they're going to people watch, they'll make those and they'll sit inside of it, thinking that we're not going to notice them in there, but they sit in there while they're watching us. So while we're looking for them, they're watching us the whole time.
All right. What would they be watching us for? Because they are curious type creatures.
Absolutely. They want to study our behaviors, our mannerisms. They're going to watch us if we're too close to their area to see if we're a threat, to see what we're going to do. They'll do a read on us because they know our intent, they know our emotions, they know everything about us. So it's safer for them if they keep an eye on us. And they're curious about our ways. I mean, we sit there and we think about them and, it's like we want to study everything about them because, they're so different from us and the culture is so different. And it's the same way on both sides. Our culture is completely different. We don't behave in any manner that they do. And we look just as funny to them as they do to us. So it's the same thing. They just want to study us.
Okay. So getting back to the clues that people can look for, you mentioned structures. You mentioned what do the giant X's mean? I mean, yes, trees can fall into an X pattern.
Correct.
We get that, okay? But sometimes when you lift up, you go look closer at the trees, they're interwoven in between other trees to hold them in place. Something that Mother
Right.
Nature just couldn't do even on her
Well,
best.
you've got two X's. Your upright X's that are just like, each part of the X is leaned up against a tree. those are territorial. I mean, mean stay out. When you get the X's, but yet there's a pole on either side of those X's, whether it's a tree or whatever, and it's anchored like that, that's a territorial marker. And honestly, these X's that are upright, they mean business. They're really meaning not only for other Sasquatch and other clans, but us as well. They want us to stay out. The difference is then you get the ground X's. And when you have X's on the ground, that means something altogether different. That means welcome. You know, the smaller X's, not perhaps like 20 foot or whatever, but the smaller X's that are on the ground, that's a welcome sign. And I've had several of them confirm that to me. There was one time they were crawling under the house and they were tearing apart at a mobile home, and they were pulling the skirting out around it, and they'd go under the house. And I kept trying to tell them not to do it, and they kept doing it anyway. And no matter how I secured it, they would undo it and go under there. So I thought, okay, they aren't listening to my language, I'll try theirs. And I thought at that time, I thought that the ground X's, you know, was an X, it meant stay out. So I put it outside of where they were going in at, thinking that would tell them not to go in it. And instead, it was like a Mardi Gras party under my house that night, because everything and its brother went in there. I mean, it was wilder under there than before. So the next day I asked him, I said, what did I do wrong? I put the X and you still went in there, only you guys were even more rowdy and, you know, more playing around all night long. And they laughed and they said, because when you put the X's on the ground, it means welcome. So you invited us all. So it's like, okay. You know, I had a mini pig that got loose and they were helping me find him, and they put an X outside the door so that he would know where to go, because it means welcome. So the ground X's are welcome. Uprights are anything from a stay out to a stay out and territorial marker.
Okay. If they mark an area, are they always in that area?
Not necessarily. They're going to wander. I mean, they cover a wide range. So it doesn't mean they're there 24 hours a day, but they normally, if they're marking an area, they keep a guard there. And that guard stays there all the time. I went to this one place. It was actually a state park. And a friend of mine and I went in there to walk the trails because I'd seen structures in there before. And the guard rushed up right away, you know, which he was fine. I mean, he didn't bother me at all. I just talked to him and it was okay. But, you know, that is, if they've got an X there, they're going to have a guard watch it. And then they're going to monitor you if you try to cross it.
Is that where these, what they call sentinels, come into play?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. We got 90 seconds to go here, and it's always a busy time when we talk about spaced out radio and the cryptid report. When you are looking for these creatures and you are in their area, what's something you should be aware of?
First thing I'd say is feel that vibe of the area. If you're feeling negativity in there, you need to leave. That's them giving you a warning. They're projecting an emotion on you that's not where you're supposed to be. Look for these upright X's. If you're seeing those, you're not supposed to be there. Be observant. They will give subtle signs that they don't want you there before they do anything. They'd rather avoid a conflict than have it. Be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of the signs that you're being given, even if they're subtle, and listen to them. It may not be the day you should be there. That doesn't mean you can't come back later. You know, I mean, you've had that experience as well, Dave, where, you know, it felt bad that day and you went a couple weeks later and everything was fine. You know, there's many reasons why they may not want you in there, and not all just for them. It could be for your own safety as well. So be aware of what's going on. Pick up any bad energy, bad vibes that you might feel, and listen to that. If you're seeing all these upright X's, that's not where you're supposed to be. Be respectful. Be respectful at all times.
Right on. Robin, where can people find more information on you?
You can find me at www.paranormal-empowerment.com, or you can go on Facebook, and I'm under Robin Haynes, Haynes. Do not use the Robin L. Haynes, use Robin Haynes. And I usually answer everybody.
I know you do, and I cannot wait to see you next month in Nebraska.
I know. It's going to be fantastic. For anybody that wants to come, we've got a great set of speakers. List. We've got 3 movies. In fact, our own Duke Sullivan will be having Inevitably Finding Bigfoot on there. We're going to have Flash of Beauty and another new movie. So please come. It's a Nebraska Bigfoot Conference on the internet.
All right, Robin Haynes and the Cryptid Report. Coming up next on Spaced Out Radio, we are going to have the Dave 101 and the weird news of the week. Stay tuned. Final half hour. Tonight's show is next. All right, Robin, thank you very much, my dear.
Not a problem, sweetie. See you next week.
See you next week. Robin Haynes, everybody. We love her around here. Excuse me for a moment as nature calls. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. My water intake just drives me crazy. It's all I drink now is water. Water here, water there. But it's good for me. Yeah. Kira would be cheering for me right now. She'd be like, yay. That's good. That's good. It's been a great show tonight. Lots of huge information. Huge information tonight. Maureen, I'm starting to feel better. Starting to feel better. Every day feeling a little bit better, which is good. All right, a big thank you tonight to W. Decker, T-Bone ×2, Jeremy ×2, Pix, Candy, Mama Catherine, Android, Adam, Deb, and Scanman for the great super chats tonight. Wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. And want to say a big thank you to everybody who's shopped at our Spaced Out Radio store, because we do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. And you can check it on out by going to spacedoutradio.com. And what else can I say? Let's see here. Where are we on the Twitter count? We're 23 away from 10,000. So if you're on Twitter and you're not following us, or X, pardon me, hit us up. hit us up. Go hit subscribe or follow. Yeah. We'd appreciate it because we are here 7 days a week. Total views tonight so far on all the media outlets, 1,044 people watching right now. It's an amazing number. We've never had that high before. Damn it, we deserve that. We do. So thank you, everybody. All right, we're going to kick off the final half hour right now, guys. Stay tuned. Sit tight. Here we go with the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. My name is Dave Scott, always broadcasting to you nightly on this show. Want to remind each and every one of you that if you missed most of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. It is that time of the night, that time of the week where I say, get off my lawn, because it's a Dave 101.
It's time for Dave 101.
There's a story out there that says if you control the medium, you control the message. And there's also a story out there about a gentleman named Marshall McLuhan. Okay, this was a Canadian philosopher who had a famous quote that the medium is the message. But what if the media is shut out of a story? Look, these days, not many people trust mainstream media. And that saddens me as a former member of mainstream media, because when I was a journalist, the rule of thought was you're like a referee in hockey or football. You're like an umpire in baseball, where no matter what, you are supposed to call the story down the middle. And over time, especially over the last quarter century, we've seen media outlets really slip into this ugly category of choosing political sides. Doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat, whether you're a liberal or not. Okay, the medium has changed drastically, and not for the good, and definitely not for the better. But there are journalists out there who continue to strive to bring pride back to a field that has a lot of pride. Up here in Canada, I think of Peter Mansbridge. Down in the U.S., I think of Walter Cronkite or Peter Jennings. Good Canadian kid, Peter Jennings. Okay, I think of people like that because they were voices of authority who, when they spoke, we listened. They showed empathy. They showed mortality. They showed happiness. They showed sadness. And they showed anger in the reports that they covered. And the journalists that worked with them were just as good and strong as well. Where this is getting scary is more and more over time, we see journalists using their own political opinion in order to cover stories. Doesn't matter whether it's politics or whether it's city stories or whatever it may be. They are insinuating and inciting their own readership, listenership, and viewership to take the opinion of the reporter. That's not what the job is about. The job is about telling a story, because journalists by far are supposed to be the eyes and ears of the public. They are supposed to be the judge and jury for those who do wrong, and they are supposed to get public reaction to how things are going in the world right now. Now, how does this tie into what we talk about? Well, let me tell you. This ties into UFOs because the Pentagon is allegedly choosing only select media outlets to cover their new report from Arrow. We don't hear anybody from this community, our community, who has been invited to talk about this subject. There's no news nation who's been a champion of the UFO subject since they came on the circuit just about 2 years ago. We see Ross Coulthart, a very strong journalist. We know he's not invited. George Knapp, another strong voice for the UFO community. He's not invited. We know Brian Bender is not invited. We know Leslie Keene, for as far as we know, is not invited. We know the people who are not invited, but we also do not know who has been invited. That's a scary thought because, once again, when you control the medium, you control the message. Look, we only thought things like this happened in communist or fascist type countries. This isn't supposed to happen in the US. This isn't supposed to happen in Canada, where we have someone who is trying to control the medium as well. This is scary for all intents and purposes, because if this story happened on a topic like healthcare, education, gun control, or anything of the ilk that winds people up, there would be all hell breaking loose towards the political figures who made this choice. But because it's UFOs, we don't seem to pay attention to what is going on. No, because it's UFOs and we are a fringe topic that most media outlets choose not to cover because too many news directors out there think this isn't a story, well, that's where deceivement happens. You see, the journalists who are likely going to cover this story are going to cover it with a skeptical eye, which is exactly what the Pentagon wants. They are going to cover this because most of the journalists who will likely be there haven't really touched this subject. Sure, there might be one or two that are familiar with the UFO game, but for the remainder of them, they've never really covered it. They don't know how to cover it. This is a difficult story to cover because for most media outlets and their news directors, their program directors, they think that when you talk UFOs, you're talking about flying saucers and little green men running around anal probing people for their fun and enjoyment. They believe that people like you and me are just a bunch of beatniks out there who don't have a dental plan and probably don't have a job and drive a 72 El Camino. They believe that we are not worthy of the tinfoil that we wear because they don't think that this subject has any type of brains that go beyond it. It's only conspiracy theorists who believe in UFOs, correct? They don't see the scientists who are digging into this story, whether it's Science Bob, who we have on the air here, whether it's Gary Nolan or Jacques Vallée or Rich Hoffman or anybody in between. Dr. Michael Masters, comes to mind as well. They don't look into the remote viewing. They don't look into the paranormal, supernatural, because they don't want to. They feel it is a subject that is too taboo and too sci-fi and more so fictional that they don't want to waste proper airtime or writing space for such mundane, useless topics. No, they don't see that at all. They think the tinfoil is wrapped too tight around many of us. They don't understand that lawyers, doctors, nurses, plumbers, accountants, and everybody in between on that professional level, the white-collar jobs, also have as many experiences as those in the blue-collar category like you and me. They don't understand the effects this takes on people when somebody has an encounter with a UFO or an extraterrestrial or an ultra-terrestrial or an NHI, whatever you want to call it. They don't want to see that NASA has been lying to you. They don't want to see the true meaning why, or one of the true meanings why Space Force was created. They don't want to see the outcome because they don't care. And when it comes to the story of UFOs, that plays right in the hands of people like Susan Goff, who is the PR coordinator for all the Pentagon alphabet agencies. It plays right into their hands because, once again, when you control the medium, you control the message. And this is a message that they want to get out. You see, whether you like it or not, those at the Pentagon who have been covering this story and finding out the information, they are tired of people like you and me. They're tired of the Nicole Sackiches, the Joe Murgias. They're tired of researchers going after them. Hell, they don't even like Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp or any of the others who keep coming at them. You see, because we in this field, we may be few, but we are strong. And we have a very loud voice when it comes to our opinion on UFOs, not UAP, which are man-made, UFOs, and the fact that we are being visited by other life forms on this planet. They don't want you to know what technology they have recovered, whether it's from Roswell or crashes more recently in the Nevada desert. They don't want you to know about anything to do with contact with any alien civilizations. They want you to make sure that you still have bills to pay, that you have to worry about your taxes, your health care, and how you're going to pay for medication, how you're going to pay to get little Susie in dance or little Johnny in football. They don't care because they want you concentrating on what type of dog food to buy your pets because, some of them just aren't healthy enough anymore. They want those arguments between gender, between race, between everything else because they want that focus away from what they are hiding. There are very few topics around this planet that will affect every single person on this earth. UFOs and extraterrestrial life is one of the biggest questions about whether or not we are alone in the universe. They don't want to answer that. You see, they want the technology for themselves. That's what the military-industrial complex is all about, because they want the bigger, better, badder toys just in case that true threat of world annihilation through nuclear weapons and nuclear war actually happens. Now, how do we improve on that? We got to keep talking. We got to keep using places like X, like Facebook, like Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and every other medium in between in order to keep the messages flowing. Look, even though we are getting criticized by this community, there is a strong force of people who, even though they may be playing the government game, they still feel that humanity needs to know about this subject. They need to know that humanity isn't alone in the universe, answering one of the most ultimate questions ever. They don't want unity in this field. They don't want people to come together and put pressure on them, like the farmers in Europe fighting for their crops, fighting for their land, fighting for their livelihoods. They don't want that. You see, the military-industrial complex is a very, very selfish group. They want more weapons. They want to project fear because fear sells defense. And that is a $1 trillion business annually in the United States of America alone. Never mind what the defense corporations are making from every other country that they are selling everything from helicopters to tanks to bullets and machine guns. It's very, very true that this is all going on. It's very, very true that we are the ones who they are trying to silence. They are the ones who are trying to keep this story out. Why? Because they want it for themselves. And this gets back to the original point once again. Control the medium, you control the message. when you're controlling the message, that is when you have the opportunity to handpick which reporters you want covering your subject. Because if this meeting goes any way that I think it's going to go, it's not going to play well for ufology. They are going to downplay any type of crash retrieval program. They are going to downplay any type of non-human intelligence that they have recovered or are in contact with. They are not going to talk about UFOs that they have grabbed pieces from. They are not wanting to talk about the technology they have learned from these crash retrievals and how they've advanced themselves, but they haven't advanced humanity at all. Imagine a world right now where currently, we are all arguing about the benefits or the disparaging remarks regarding electric vehicles. Imagine if they have already, with UFOs, figured out zero-point gravity, figured out how these craft can fly without going to a local gas station and paying exorbitant amounts to fill up your vehicle. That's where the toys are. They're in places like Area 51, Dugway, and many, many more. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base can be thrown on that name as well. You see, the military-industrial complex isn't about improving humanity. It is about spending enough money to make sure that there are enough wars going on, so that way they can keep their stock and shareholders happy. Yes, fear is a major, major problem that we have on this planet, and fear creates budgets. And when you cover up the story because you do not want this story to come out, you hand select your journalists to come in and write the story that you want. That's a dangerous precedent for the media, and the mainstream needs to pick up on this, because it doesn't matter if the topic is UFOs. What matters is the story is being covered up, and the media outlets need to be ashamed for not bringing that to the public eye. That is your Dave 101 for tonight. Let's get to the news.
What time is it?
It's time for Shirky Poo's news!
All right, here's the weird and strange news of the week. Let's start off in Toronto, where they're having a little problem with finding rental accommodations. And the rental market in Toronto continues to be what they're calling a gong show to see which landlord can sink to the lowest of lows. How's this one? Royal York Road in an area of Etobicoke, where another landlord is attempting to bamboozle desperate renters into thinking they have scored a deal. Large, beautiful bedroom with attached den, bed, pillows, and mattresses for 4 occupants. The Kijiji listing reads, so far, 3 of the bunk beds have been spoken for, and there's only 1 left. As long as you're female, Keralite, a native of the southwestern Indian state of Kerala, non-vegetarian and preferably Christian, the space does come with a fully equipped kitchen and clean wide bathrooms, along with a separate den for luggage storage, because aside from a tiny closet, there doesn't appear to be a dresser or anywhere to keep your personal items such as, clothing, shoes, jackets, anything of the like. And while the landlord is asking $475 per female tenant, utilities are only an extra $50 a month, bringing the total to $525 for what can only be described as a petty price camp experience. The ad was shared on Reddit, Slumlords Canada page, where Redditors calculated that it would net the landlord $2,100 if all 4 bunks were filled. The Reddit poster also noted, and it seems to be based on the photos, that there's another room with more occupants. Who wants to take a guess how many there are in total? The landlord is insisting on a minimum 4-month contract, asking for first and last month's rent, and tenants must give 60 days notice if they plan to end their contract. Oh, and by the way, this is in the proximity of about 10 colleges and universities, so they're trying to fully take advantage of students in that one. All right. A lot of people in Charleston, West Virginia are giving a hoot about a restaurant closure. Patrons of the beloved Hooters location had planned a candlelight vigil to mourn the loss of the chain restaurant known for its wings and wait staff with tight-fitting uniforms. I've never noticed them when I've gone into a Hooters. I'm there for the wings. The restaurant is slated to be demolished and replaced by a Sheetz gas station. The memorial began initially on Facebook, where people and locals and visitors alike shared their memories of their favorite hangout. The vigil was a brainchild of friends Leonard Browning and Drew Cook. Browning says the event was started after news of the closure spread in the community. Browning said there wasn't a lot to do in Charleston, and the closure was kind of sad. He said with the popularity of candlelit vigils across the country, he thought it would be nice to do something positive for their local hangout. The Charleston location was one of the last in West Virginia. It shut down in 2020 when COVID-19 pandemic began and never reopened. Browning said he had hoped the Hooters would reopen one day, but alas, his dreams have not come true. Isn't that sad? Here's a weird one. In Hollywood, actor Kevin Bacon is a big star, but in Wisconsin's Kenosha County, Kevin Bacon is just one big pig. The 450-pound porker wandered from his pen last week, then moseyed on down the road where he was caught hamming it up on the Mulgard family security camera. My wife spotted an unusual shaped figure on the driveway camera walking along our garage, Jake Mulgard said, adding that the bulky stranger ended up coming right up to our back door. Well, what do you do when a large four-legged pig visits your home on a Friday night? My wife started feeding him right away, said Mulgard. That's what she does with every animal that comes into our backyard. After the couple watched Kevin scarf down some apples, rice cakes, tomatoes, and carrots, Mulgard said it was time for them to figure out just whom the new friend belonged to. Mulgard lives in Brighton, about 38 miles south of Milwaukee. He's not a farmer, but there are many farms nearby. He called a farmer friend who not only knew the pig's owner, but had his phone number. The owner was out of town, but said he would appreciate it if the family could lure the big pig back to its pen. So that's what they did. Oh, isn't that nice, isn't it? Hey, I want to say hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, who's rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X or Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night. Hot damn, that was a good show. That was good. And once again, if you're watching on Twitter, do us a favor. Give us a follow if you don't mind. We are 23 away from 10,000. We'd love to hit that number. We really would. And to all our YouTube family hanging on out, thank you for a great show tonight. That was a lot of fun. A lot of fun, man. I like it a lot. Like it a lot. Wow. We topped out at 1,084 tonight. That was very, very impressive. Very impressive. So that's very cool. Very cool. I'm happy about that. And let's see here. What are we doing here? There we go. Who broke their tooth? Jessica Davenport. Be careful. Morning, Stephen Finnegan. How you doing? Who else creeped in here while I was doing the other part? Peppa H. Thank you, man. Thanks for coming on in. Let's go here. Good times. Oh, nice, Steve. Very nice. Thank you. Blue Cruz, how you doing, buddy? Asimov, what's happening? See you tomorrow, Luscious Jules. Remember, you're luscious. Luscious, I tell you. Fun times. The Doug Shelby was late tonight, but he did not skip this show. The Doug Shelby. Susie B, how many autographs have you signed tonight? Lex Diaz, how you doing, man? Hi, Itzy Zaza. How are you? Merle is in 2 weeks from yesterday. Tomorrow night on the show, we are going to have the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, and Anne Celine talk about a book that they wrote about monsters. It's going to be fun back into the monster game tomorrow. I felt like looking at you, Superknower. Robbie G is here this weekend. We call him Sweets around here. Nobody will ever know, Susie B. Nobody will ever know. Night, Rock and Rory. All right. Once again, tomorrow night on the show, the Crypto Guru and Anne Celine will be here, taking us down, talking about monsters all night long. Of course, Courtney Marcassani will return for the UFO report. And if that report comes out from Arrow tomorrow, we will be reporting on that one big time. I promise you that. Enjoy the trade deadline in the NHL tomorrow. One of my friends got traded. Well, one of my friend's sons got traded today. So that's kind of interesting. Yeah. He's off to Colorado, which is kind of cool. And big thing for all of you is to hang out with us tomorrow night, because that's what we're going to do. Hang out and have a good time once again. Big thank you to W. Decker, Adam, Deb, Scanman, T-Bone ×2, Andrew, Jeremy ×2, Pix, Candy, and Mama Catherine. Very much appreciate the love. I'm going to sign off for tonight. Thank you all for being here and being awesome with us. Don't forget to tell a friend and hit subscribe, ring that bell. We'll see you tomorrow, everyone. Good night.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.